everyone, and welcome to a spoiler review episode for Spider-Man No Way Home on this Sunday night from the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey! We're so excited to jump into this film here, the third in the what was now, according to Amy Pascal, only the first trilogy of Tom Holland as Spider-Man movies, much to Sony's chagrin, but this one has been burning up the box office. Already it is the third highest opening film in the history of films ever. It's Sony's highest grossing film in December, and globally, it only is tracking behind Infinity War and Endgame in terms of its box office opening. This is incredible. Pandemic? What? So phenomenal work by everybody involved with this production. And we're going to break this whole thing down, talk about spoilers, talk about reveals, talk about what worked, what didn't work. And at the end, talk about where we think it's going to go next, both Spider-Man as a story and the MCU as a whole. Now let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies. Michael.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies like the all-new Strawberry Shortcake, which is why I have this lovely beanie on my head.
Shan.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where I also got to work on Strawberry Shortcake. My latest episode just dropped yesterday on YouTube.
Nice.
But you have to have more than one episode on YouTube before you can get your strawberry beanie.
Oh,
That is true. That
really?
is true.
Is that something you guys have come up with in the writer's room? Damn. All right.
No, it's something Shannon just came up with right now, but sure.
Self-imposed.
Shannon and Amy Pascal just talking, flapping those lips. You never know what's
coming
going to
up
come
with
out of them.
stuff.
28 shows before you get the beanie.
And our fourth, and we are so incredibly blessed and excited to have as our fourth here tonight on the Geek Buddies, someone who's been our fourth at a number of other reviews. And this is one of those rare forays out of the Star Wars universe into the Marvel universe with us. That is the great and awesome Laura Kelly. How are you, Laura?
I'm amazing. I'm rocking my Gwen Stacy little cosplay today. So
Oh,
hence
I like
the
it.
headband.
All
Yeah,
right.
indirect reference to Spider-Man because I don't have Spider-Man clothes. I only have Star Wars clothes. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Palpatine makes an appearance in this one, so, it's crazy.
Oh my God, did you see that meme? It's when they were like, Spider-Man successfly used Palpatine more effectively than Rise of Skywalker did.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And they're not wrong.
I'm getting a shot of the pecs already from Shannon McClung. I appreciate it. A couple beers, and he's already taking the clothes off. All right, it's going to be one of those kind of reviews. Let's get it on. Laura Kelly, stay away from bridges if you've got the Gwen Stacy outfit going on. All right, anyway, we're going to jump into so many things here tonight and take it step by step and piece by piece. We already got 250 of you all joining us here live. We appreciate it madly. Please remember to hit the like button as you're watching this. If you're watching it later, leave a comment and hit the like button. And most of all, tonight we're live. So Superchats and Streamlabs are going to be open. Everyone's been talking about this. So send in your support, send in your donations here. We will put it up on the screen and answer them here as we go along through this whole conversation of Spider-Man No Way Home. So relax.
I'm so excited right now because I feel like we've all been so good on Twitter this weekend.
We have been.
People have not been spoiling stuff. People have not been talking about shit, but this is a safe place, guys. This is the spoiler review.
Yeah.
We can say all of those things that we haven't been able to say. We could talk about all the times we cried. We could talk about all the times we cheered. We could talk about the more times that we cried because there was way more crying in this movie than I was expecting. And I'm really excited to share this with all of you.
Yeah. There may be no crying in baseball. There sure as hell is a lot of crying in the MCU. That's for damn sure, especially in Spider-Man No Way Home. Adam Hitchcock already starting us off here with a super chat. Hello, Geek Buddies. This has been the most difficult year of my life, and you three have helped me through it. I'm sure he also means Laura. Andrew won the movie. I cried when he saved MJ, and favorite line was Peter 3. Also, Holland versus Goblin was brutal. Yeah, so starting right off the bat, Michael, I'll let you chime in just a second. Want to remind you all, it's a spoiler review. If you have not seen the movie, we are going to be spoiling this thing from top to bottom. So please turn it off, go see the movie, and then turn this back on again after we're done recording it. Michael, what were you going to say to this?
I just want to get in front of this right now. First of all, Adam, thank you so much. That's very sweet, and we are glad that we can be here for you. That is the best and my most favorite compliment that we get.
Yes.
I just want to get this out of the way now. A couple weeks ago, we were discussing the movie trailer. We were discussing MJ falling, and John Rocha said, I bet Andrew Garfield is going to catch her, and Shannon and I poo-pooed him and said it was Tom Holland's movie, and they weren't going to give that moment to Andrew Garfield because it wouldn't feel earned, and it wouldn't work. And then John was not at the movie with us on Thursday night, but I was sitting next to Shannon, and that moment happened, and I burst into tears, so it clearly worked.
Yes.
And then I cried harder because I turned to Shannon and said, God damn it, Rocha was right.
Isn't the only time I was writing this movie, but yes, I appreciate that. Thank you, Michael. It's very kind of you. Laura, Shannon, want to chime in on this? What Adam Hitchcock said here?
What, in terms of
Did Andrew win the movie? Do you feel that way as well?
I feel like so many people won the movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
fair.
you know, everyone did such a fantastic job. Andrew Garfield, you know, demonstrates again and again why he is an Academy Award nominated performer. He's so freaking good. And even though, you know, most of us had a good idea it was coming, the moment that we do see him, it was just like, I'm like, I didn't even really like the two Garfield movies. I liked his chemistry.
Sure.
but as soon as he came in, I was like, ha, ha, brah. I mean, so many tears throughout this movie.
Please.
And Adam Hitchcock, love to know that you know, we're helping out. Like that's wonderful to hear, my friend.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Absolutely. Laura, any thoughts on this from Adam Hitchcock?
I think that Marvel and Sony won the movie. I think that they are the biggest winners of the year, I think, this year. I mean, this was such an accomplishment. And in terms of Andrew Garfield, I love him so much. I like his Spider-Man movies. So I've never really understood why people are so against them. But I think he's great. I think he is going to come out of this a winner.
Yeah.
In that I wonder if maybe there's going to be more of him in the MCU or in getting his own movie at some point. I feel like they've mission accomplished if that's what they were going for, like thinking about setting up. I feel like everybody's on board now.
Yeah.
I don't know that they were expecting this response. Maybe they were. I don't think so, but I think the fact that people now are like, I will take a Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4, and I will take an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm back on board. Like the resuscitation of those franchises and the life support that happened with this movie, just the magic of what they did, that you could conceivably do that. Now, Sony doing it without Marvel means that they would probably ruin it in at least one movie, but it's possible still.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I mean, maybe not though. I mean, they did do Into the Spider-Verse. So, I mean, their batting average is not nearly as high, but to say that they're 0 for 6 is not true. I mean, they have put out a good Spider-Man movie.
I think the key is Lord Miller being involved, clearly.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that ends up translating into a live action. Laura and I, we're all Star Wars fans. We know what happened when Lord Miller tried to do something for Star Wars. So let them finish movies, goddammit. All right, Derek Johnson says, hey, buddies, love the show. Can't start watching live tonight. Got to prep for some work presentations. Respect, Derek. Just wanted to show some love and say I appreciate this show and will always be a fan. Thank you, Derek.
Aw.
Very nice, Derek. Thank you.
Very
When
kind.
you do watch this, I hope the presentations went well.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure you killed it. All right, let's jump into this thing. All right, real quick, I'm going to give you a synopsis real quick. Peter Parker's upset that everyone knows his name off of that last movie. Now, thanks to Mysterio J. Jonah Jameson, it's affecting May, MJ, and Ned. Asks Doctor Strange to erase everyone's memory, but Parker, of course, messes with the spell, opens portals from other universes into this. Was some villains come in, some heroes come through, and he spends the rest of the movie with his crew and one person playing both sides, trying to repair the situation. And by the end of the movie, has to make one of the biggest sacrifices he's ever had to make in his life and loses one of the most cherished people in his life, bringing the Spider-Man story full circle in this version of Spider-Man for sure. Let's get into overall thoughts here. And as I said, ladies and gentlemen, I will be bringing in your Streamlabs and Super Chats as we go along, so keep them coming. Mike, we always start with you. Overall thoughts coming out of Spider-Man No Way Home, especially now that you had a little bit of time to process it and mull it over.
My overall thought, and I tweeted it as soon as we got out, was I felt like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Like, they did it. That crazy son of a bitch, they did it. Like, I've been so excited for this movie. I love the other Spider-Man movies. I thought it was going to be good. But they were biting off a lot in this movie, and I was like, are they going to pull it off? I have some critiques, like I have my issues. Like, I don't think it's a perfect movie, but they pulled it off. I mean, they did such an amazing job with this movie, did things that I was not expecting them to do, and did things that hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting. I think I'm not the first person to say this. I know other people have said it, but ultimately, I know a lot of people, when the Tom Holland movies started, were kind of like, I feel like we're skipping over some really important parts in the Peter Parker story. Like, we're not doing the Uncle Ben. We're not seeing Peter Parker struggling. He's got all this Tony Stark tech right off the bat. He's got all of these things. It's like superhero privilege almost. And like, they didn't want like Spider-Man to have that. But now when you see where he's ended up at the end of this movie, these 3 movies almost are an alternate universe origin.
Yeah.
And everything that he did with Tony, with the Avengers, with everything that happened, led to this super tragic moment where he had literally everything taken away from him and got the great power and great responsibility speech. And the fact that they did that and sort of rebooted him to where he got, it was just an amazing feat of storytelling, combined with the fact that, like I said, it hit me in the gut so hard. It's like I don't miss the fact that it wasn't Uncle Ben, because I feel like what they did hit us harder and made it fresh for a new generation of comic book fans.
That's great. Great words there, Michael. Laura, let's go to you next in the rotation. Laura Kelly, tell us what you felt coming. I mean, we saw your tweets on social media. Certainly, this is a movie that affected you. Immediately wanted to talk to 100 people about it. What was your feeling coming out of this movie?
Immensely rewarding. That is, I think, the summary of this movie and how I felt overall. Is even in my second my rewatch, I felt the same thing. It was just so immensely rewarding. And I wonder if people who maybe didn't do the review homework felt the same way about it, like that I did. If you didn't actually go back and watch the Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 1, 2, like in order to sort of get the full impact of the emotional beats in this movie, I wonder how that felt for somebody not in the same boat as me. But I certainly felt them. I was so surprised, I think, following something like Infinity War and Endgame and the stakes and just the accomplishment that those films are, just in getting all of those people into the same film at the same time. I didn't think I would walk away from another Marvel movie feeling that way, of like, what an accomplishment that you were able to pull this off. And I was just left dumbstruck by the time I left. So I also think this is the strongest performance we've gotten out of Tom Holland in this role.
I agree with that.
It was an amazing performance, and there's a couple little beats that I definitely want to touch on when we get into it. But it was just, I sobbed through most of it. It kind of started with, it started with the same place that probably everybody started with, and then it just didn't stop for me. It was just one after the other, but I wouldn't trade anything about it. I wouldn't change a thing. It was beautiful.
That's fantastic words, Laura. Shannon, you hear what your co-hosts say on this show. What's your feeling after listening to them, and also your own feelings about it? You went and saw it a second time as well, I believe. So what do you feel coming out of this movie now? What you think it's, I don't know, what your overall vibe is, and where do you think its place is in the MCU?
I mean, the expectations for this were sky high. The bar was set so high just by way of where we were in the story. Like, we had left off on such a big cliffhanger at the end of Far From Home, and because of the damn leaks. I mean,
right.
The idea of what was probably going to happen. I agree with Vogel. There were definitely parts that I felt maybe the pacing was a little bit off. Luckily, those were all at the beginning for me. And then once we hit a certain point, the movie takes off like a rocket ship. Now, going back and watching it a second time, the quibbles that I had, because they were very minor, because I've never been the biggest, in terms of superheroes, I've never been the biggest Spider-Man guy. And it's only been with the Tom Holland movies. No, I like him fine, but he's just never been my guy. But with the Tom Holland movies is where I really started to kind of fall in love with that world of Spider-Man. And even though it's not the traditional world that a lot of the folks who were kind of brought up on Spider-Man, like being a photographer for the Bugle, always kind of struggling, even though, like, I'm excited to now get to that. But yeah, like, watching it for a second time, it was just so fantastic. And again, as we've all gotten older, we tend to get a little more emotional in movies, and even like knowing stuff that was coming, I still and like I saw not that I'm afraid or embarrassed to cry in front of my friends, but I'm glad no one was with me that second time because the emotional stuff hit me even harder.
Yeah. Same. Seeing it a second time, I saw it earlier this afternoon. It was just it was nice to sit back and relax and go, I'm in good hands. Take me where you want to take me because I've already seen this. And you're right. The emotions, Shannon, they come even stronger a second time because you sense this is a lot of doors closing at once in one movie in a certain way. And that is just like devastating. But then also some nice closure for Andrew Garfield and for Tobey Maguire. For me, there's a lot of great moments in the film, but almost my number one moment for my own personal thing is Tobey having that interaction with Doc Ock. Peter and Octavius having that moment on the bridge. I'm going to get emotional talking about it. That's his mentor. That's in essence his second father. Just in that conversation. And for anyone who's lost a parent, it's like to have that moment, just one more exchange, just one more back and forth for a few seconds would mean the world. And the way he says, I'm just trying to do better. It's like, oh my God. And there's such pride in Octavius when he's looking at him. It just breaks you. And that's what this film did so well. Yeah. Did it start out just finding its feet a little bit? Yes. But once it did, it took off like a rocket and you were on board and it surprised you. It shocked you, it delivered, and it satisfied you by the end with all the reveals. And I think the timing of all the reveals were so perfectly done. And even the twists and turns within Octavius, within Goblin, within Electro, all really worked. And they didn't even make a big deal about the fact that Rhys Ifans and Thomas Hayden Church came back. That was so great to see them. I was afraid they were going to go another direction. And then when they came back to be themselves, I was so happy to see them stepping in, even for a few seconds, as themselves reprising these roles. So much of this was satisfying, along with the great work by Zendaya, from Jacob Batalon, from Tom Holland. I agree with Laura. This is one of the best acting jobs Tom Holland's ever done. And I think of that scene when he's on the roof talking to the other Spider-Man about the losses. And he tells him, you don't know what I'm going through. And then they drop the bombs of the fact that they do know what he's going through. And it mirrored that into the Spider-Verse moment when Miles is talking about the death of his uncle and they're all chiming in with who they lost in their respective universes. So just it's incredibly faithful to the Spider-Man comic book while also doing a great job bringing it to life in live action. So
damn, dude, you're gonna make me cry right now.
No, sorry. Samir says, I love you guys. Geek Buddy, spider icon there. Geek Buddies. Thank you, Samir. Very kind. Very kind. Keith Forster says, Charlie effing Cox. We're going to get to that for sure. There goes Laura. Let's see. Suraj Nair goes, adore the work you guys do. I know this might be a tall task. Was wondering when a crossover between the Geek Buddies and Heroes Reforged would be possible. P.S. Eminem Mike is my favorite look. I love it. Oh no. That's great. That is a great. We'll see. I mean, I love the Heroes Reforged guys. We know each other very, very well. Hector and Augustine and my boy Adam. So certainly that's a possibility down the road. I don't know if 6 dudes talking about it makes sense, but maybe down the road we can do something for sure.
What's wrong with 6 dudes hanging out together and just doing dude stuff? I don't.
You're right. It's 2021. You're right.
I don't see a problem.
Let's define dude stuff here.
Hey, is this cool? A Better Day says, I know this review is about Spider-Man and I adored the movie, but I just have to give a shout out to my girl Wanda. My gay heart almost burst when my entire theater started screaming and cheering when she showed up in the end credits scene. Yeah, we're certainly going to get into that. Mike?
No, I will just say, it's one of those things that I just love about where we are in the cinematic universe, that when you're sitting in a crowded theater and a character pops up and there is a history that goes with Wanda, goes from, Age of Ultron into Civil War, into Infinity War, Endgame, and then obviously into WandaVision, and that there is this knowledge that everybody sitting with you in that theater has been on this journey with you, and everybody has all the information and everybody is that excited. Like it's a very rare thing to have that many people all on the exact same page. And that's kind of what Marvel has given us. Yeah. And it is just, it gives me goosebumps every time. Yeah. And my gay ass also just went crazy when she full Scarlet Witch costume. I was like, here we go, let's do it.
Having to what Vogel was saying, having that sort of shared vocabulary that we now have this many years into the MCU, you can feel sort of a rolling wave of energy in a theater, especially when it's opening weekend, super crowded. Everyone there is there to watch the movie. Like, everyone is so excited to see this next chapter of this hero that we've all fallen in love with. That's just one of the things. I remember watching Return of the King in 2003, and I know not John's favorite, but there was definitely, as that movie was finishing, I'm like, God, I don't know if we will have an experience like this again, and how wrong I was.
Yeah, well, I like a film with one ending, not 7. Laura, any thoughts on this?
No, I had the same experience. I mean, and that was a thing that I missed. I mean, I don't know if I did see Eternals opening weekend, but it didn't feel the same. I didn't have the same energy in my theater. I didn't see Shang-Chi opening weekend. I think I was still hesitant to get to the theater early with that many crowds at that point in the pandemic where we were. And I was a little bit apprehensive now, I'm not going to lie. But this was the first time back of having that opening night crowd. Like, I don't know how I could forget, but like that nerd camaraderie that you have with all of those people, it's like, it's a different form of electricity than I have with Star Wars than I have with Marvel. It all feels different for some reason, but it's still amazing. And I missed that. And I didn't even realize how much I had been missing that until I got to the theater on Thursday night, and I was just drenched in it. It was amazing.
That's an excellent point you bring up, Laura. You're right. I mean, the world is crazy out there. You're aware of the divisions and everything going on, but when we get into that theater, we can put all that down and have a shared communal experience of living and dying by what we're watching on the screen and getting emotional and riding the waves and looking at strangers and going like, oh my God, for nerds who don't know sports, that's what sports is like. Watching a Marvel movie all the time. That's exactly what sports is like. And
Got it.
That's what it's like. You just ride the wave and random strangers. You're just looking at random strangers going, oh my God. It's the greatest thing in the world. So, but before we go too further, we've got 633 of you all watching us live. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight. Please remember to hit that like button and let me do my job that I messed up here. We are powered by Carbon Health. I should have led with that. I apologize to everybody at Carbon Health. So let you know, Carbon Health is sponsoring us through the month of December, possibly into 2022. We'll see, but we have to give them some love here. They're a leading national healthcare provider with a mission to bring high-quality healthcare to everyone. Urgent care, primary care, virtual care. They've got 90 clinics in 14 states, and they offer virtual care in 24 states. They believe that everyone deserves good health. So if you're struggling coming out of the theater, man, go to Carbon Health. They'll help you out for sure, and they'll take care if you've got any issues going on. And certainly Toby could use Carbon Health after that stab he got from the Green Goblin. Mike,
listen,
what were you going to say?
If you have a sore throat, if you have achy bones, if you fell into a vat of eels, if you fell into a converter and turned into sand, if you turned yourself into a lizard on accident, if you are a bipolar person who likes to kill people with your glider, or if you messed up the tentacles on your back and they took over your brain, Carbon Health is there for you.
Absolutely. Well said, Mike. Well said. All right, let's. We've got some Streamlabs that I'm going to get to, but first, let's jump into this review for the love of God. I know people are waiting for that. So, what did you all? I mean, we've talked about Tom Holland's performance. I have that as one of my notes here. Is there anything more that you all would like to add about Tom Holland's performance in this movie, about the journey that he goes on as the kid who's like dealing with the fact that everyone knows who he is? He's pained that it affects Ned and MJ and Aunt May. So he goes to Doctor Strange and has that situation. Then all this stuff happens and he loses Aunt May. And then at the end, he makes that decision to do the right thing. Talk to me, any of you all, about your impressions of Tom Holland in this movie.
I feel like, as we've already said, I mean, not just including Spider-Man movies, this is one of his best, if not his best performances. You've seen him deal with loss in the past. You've seen him sort of struggle to sort of pick up the mantle that was left to him by Tony Stark. The moment in Homecoming where he was kind of crushed under the warehouse that the Vulture had left him, and he's basically crying out for help because at the end of the day, he is still, even in the third movie, he's a kid. Like, he is still a kid. So you've seen him struggle in the past. You've seen him have challenges in the past. Nothing compares to the loss of Aunt May. And I kind of get the sense, especially by the end of the movie, that this may be a universe where there was no Ben. There was no Uncle Ben. I mean, you saw like he was down at that. I don't know if we've ever talked about him. I don't think they have, but you see him at that gravestone, and it's May. And when Toby and Andrew both bring up Uncle Ben, you know, there's nothing from him. So I mean, it's an interesting, because this is a different Aunt May than, you know, we've gotten in previous movies and from the comics. Much younger, kind of hipper Aunt May. Maybe this was one where she never got married. I mean, maybe this was just his dad's sister.
Yeah.
As we said, we've talked about this in the past, that Marvel sort of hedges their bets. Like, they've never explicitly said Uncle Ben, but they did say, he does sort of mention like his Aunt May went through a really hard time recently. Like in the first movie, he's like, I can't do this to her. She just went through something really hard. That I took that to mean we were talking about Ben's death. And his suitcase in Far From Home has Ben's initials on it.
Right.
But just the initials. Like, it could be, it's one of those things where I think they're like, if we ever want to go down the Ben route, we can. But I actually don't disagree with you that I think once they made the decision to give May the great power, great responsibility speech and have Aunt May be this Peter Parker's great loss, that you could be right. I mean, maybe, well, you know, we're just going to wait around for Kevin Feige or somebody to tell us in an interview. Yeah. Amy Pascal says it, I don't trust it. But if Kevin says it, I trust it. But yeah, I mean, but again, I think that, and this gets to the Tom Holland performance, but you know, and this happened with Nolan's Batman as well, that if you ask a geek, what do you have to have in a movie? Well, Peter Parker, you have Uncle Ben has to die, and this has to be this. Like, these are the rules. This is the way the story has always been told. And for them to sort of not do that, I think the reason that they are allowed to make such drastic changes and make us feel okay about it is that at the center of all of this, you have Tom Holland giving us a performance that is not only exceptional from an acting standpoint, but just 1000% nails who Peter Parker is to his very core.
Yeah.
He is this good kid who wants to do right, who wants to be a hero, who is as smart as Tony Stark, but has the heart of Captain America. And particularly in this movie, and the biggest part of Peter Parker's life, and John, like you said, because they hit it into the Spider-Verse, they hit it here, is Peter Parker's life is that he has had the shittiest life possible.
Right.
He's had the worst things ever happen to him, and he always bounces back. And this movie, from top to bottom, just represents that, and Tom Holland nails it.
Yeah. Laura, thoughts on Tom? Anything more to add? You know, you mentioned it earlier, how impressed you were with him. Is there more to add for what you felt about him?
Tom Holland had a resting vulnerable face, and I think just makes him perfectly cast in this role. It's just like, that is his resting state. He just looks young and youthful and vulnerable, and he brings that youthful energy to this role in a way that I feel like I didn't get out of Garfield and out of Tobey Maguire, but it's just different, and I love it. But you know, the way that he had to really express grief in even a different way in this film than he has in previous ones, and we've seen him do it really successfully in previous films, but this was just it was so much more stretched out over such a long period of the film, but I never got tired of watching this performance. It just was perfect. But one of the things I wanted to point out that I really it stuck out to me really heavily through the beginning of the film, most before we kind of got into some of like the heavier grief-stricken components of the story. There's a scene in particular, at least when he's talking to Otto, where he says, you know, I'm in control of this tentacle situation that you have going here. And they're like over the bridge, and you know, he's using his suit Bluetooth, I guess, to take over the octopus arms. But while he's delivering that line in particular, there's a very like specific Tony Stark influence in that line delivery, and there's even like the body language that comes along with it, and you see it at various points throughout this performance, mostly in the beginning of the film, but that was one that really stuck out. If you go see it again, look out for that, because it really just enriches the performance even that much more.
That's a fantastic catch you got, Laura. That's absolutely correct. Now thinking back on it, yeah, that kind of like swaggering little playful confidence, it goes beyond the sarcasm that you usually see or the jokes that Peter delivers. There's that Tony Stark influence there, Absolutely. That is a great point. Let's move on to the other side of it, and that's Jacob Batalon and Zendaya. What did you guys think about Ned and about MJ and the performances within this movie? You know, we just got them to get together at the end of the last movie. Ned figuring out what to do here as a third wheel coming into this movie of this relationship. What did you think about the performances of both Zendaya and Jacob Batalon? And for those of you who are waiting, we are going to talk about the villains next. So please, anybody want to jump in on this first? Sure.
I love them.
Okay,
I love
good. Mike,
no.
I guess I'll just start naming names and you go. Sorry about that. Mike, go ahead.
I just think that, like, this is such a... So first of all, Spidey having, like, his bestie that is with him on the trip. The whole, basically they gave sort of the Miles Morales Genki relationship to Peter with this movie with Ned. But it's been such a great thing for him to have this guy. I mean, it's a relationship that is, again, not a Peter Parker original thing that he always had. He was kind of on his own. But I think Ned has brought such a wonderful, in each movie, like being his nerdy best friend who all of a sudden finds out his best friend is Spider-Man, great, and gets to be the man in the chair. To the entire him dating Betty in Far From Home and that whole, and then his jealousy when MJ finds out. And then like what Zendaya does as MJ is so different from any version of MJ that we've ever gotten, but I feel like has just improved on itself in each movie. Like in the first movie, you're like, okay, this isn't what I thought MJ was, but okay, this is kind of cool. And then in the second movie, just the romance and the chemistry between the two of them was like so palpable. And in this movie, just seeing how concerned she is for Peter, how loyal she is to Peter, and like how like this isn't the girl that needs to be rescued. I mean, at the end of the movie, she does get rescued, and it's amazing. But for like the two of them are so integral to this. Like Peter couldn't do this without them, and I think this movie sort of doubled down on he can't do this without them because it knows that at the end of the movie, the resolution is he has to do everything without them, and we want that to be heartbroken. So it's like they gave them more to do, like the Scooby-Doo of it all, as Doctor Strange says, but then they also just really just emotionally like double down. And I just, you know that the three of them are so close in real life, and it just comes across on screen. So that's part of what made the ending of the movie so tragic, is that they're all acting so genuinely in their love and affection for each other.
Shan?
Yeah, you know what? Jacob Batalon has always been consistently very, very funny, and I think in this one, really great moment between him and Tobey Maguire when he asked, like, "Oh, so you got a best friend in your world?" And you get sort of the revelation about what happened to James Franco and how that affects Ned. I mean, one of the hardest things to do when you are landing a comic moment is to be still, because one of the, like, we want to overact, we want to play like, you want to react, you want to be doing something, and the restraint that he showed in just letting that moment sit, and that slow realization of, oh no, what if that's my fate, what if that's my destiny, and then him reassuring Tom Holland like, hey, I am never going to become a villain and betray you. Zendaya had the most interesting journey starting from the first movie because, she started off as this, kind of tough, sarcastic, dry delivery gal, and we slowly get to see what happens when she trusts you and when she has feelings for you, when she feels a connection with you. You get past that rough exterior, and you get to sort of the gooey center, and you get to see the genuine affection that she has, not just for Peter Parker, but also for Ned. I mean, you get to see that at the end, that in the absence of Peter from their memory, they still have this connection, which is just super, super sweet. Like, all three of them did a really great job.
Yeah. Laura, thoughts on Jacob Batalon and Zendaya and their journeys here as with their characters and how they did as actors?
Ned and Peter in particular, I think, have just the most amazing balance, I think, of a lot of the characters that we see in this film. And I think that, Ned got all these funny bits and he got the man far from home. So I think that, the fact that he's kind of playing the third wheel a little bit in this film, but not really picking up on that is just so perfect for the character. And it's just this perfectly balanced thing, I think, with him and Peter. And I really appreciated that. I think the writers have really nailed their relationship time and again. I agree 100% with Shannon. I think that the buildup of the MJ character from where we started with Zendaya to where we have her now is one of the most rewarding I think, performances over the course of the trilogy. It was really, really fun getting to watch that, because she started great to begin with. She was so funny and so dry, and I loved it. And you're right, it wasn't much different MJ than what we've had in the past. The way that she evolved, and that last scene at sunrise with her and Tom, whoa! And with that Michael Giacchino score, like
his score,
major,
props to his score all by itself. Yeah. Like props for all three movies, just the consistency of that score, the consistency of the themes, and the power that he brings to that theme in different ways. Like, boo.
Yeah. There was definitely a moment that Vogel and I shared as Peter Parker went to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and you can start to hear the opening the opening chords of Doctor Strange's theme, because, as you know, Vogel and I are big score fans, and you're just sort of this excitement of like, all right, like we knew this was going to happen, but we're still so excited.
Yeah. Friendship goals is when you're in a movie and music starts playing, and you reach out and hold your straight friend's hands and pat it like you're two 80-year-old women at the Blue Plate special. Like, I just patted his hand, and I'm like, "That we know that music. We know that music. Don't be
That's
you gotta
beautiful.
love it. You gotta love it. Yeah, I love what Zendaya did in this movie. I love her playing these moments where she's not intimidated. She's in the Sanctum Sanctorum, and she's telling Doctor Strange in his own house what magic words to use. She's very much a strong, composed young woman who is clear about what she's doing. I had shades of Margot Kidder from 1978 Superman. This idea that when she's flying through the air, she's freaking out just like MJ is in this film. But when she's on the ground, she's very clear about how strong she is as a person and what she wants. And I loved that. They had little shades of it as I was watching it. And she's growing in power as an actress. Really, the project by project, she grabs even more power and respect. And seeing Jacob Batalon, and you're right to point out, Laura, him like kind of sliding in to be a third wheel, not even knowing he's a third wheel. I mean, they're literally about to kiss on the roof, and he rolls up and goes, "Guys, oh, some peace and quiet, finally." Oh, all of that works so well. But then
read the room, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. But then you have the sweetness of the connection that you have with Peter and MJ when they're on the phone with each other in the separate, like they do the split screen. That is a genius move. A genius move that lets you know that this is about love. This isn't about them having sex or exploring anything. No, it's about them just being in love and the back and forth on that. And there is such earnestness on both of their parts. She even says, I can't wait to see it tomorrow. And he has that smile. It's like, yeah, me too. And it's just so sweet. You remember like what that's like, what that feels like. And it's so great to see it here in this movie from top to bottom, and pointed out that sunrise moment. That's the boom, man, for everything. So yeah.
At the other end though, and Big B just said it in the chat, her throwing bread at Andrew Garfield might be one of the funniest parts of the whole movie.
Yes.
The first one was very, very funny. The second one, where it's just a shot of Andrew Garfield and you just see bread fly out of frame and hit him, that was even funnier.
No, the whole thing where she's making him crawl on the wall, that is just brilliant. Is that enough? No, it's not enough. It's not enough. All right. Well, let's get into some of these Streamlabs before we jump into the villains here. We've got a bunch of them that have rolled through, so I want to make sure I get to them so people don't think we're not reading their stuff here. Let's see. Marvel fan says, I don't remember Doctor Strange's wording, but if he only made the people on Earth forget about Peter Parker, then Nick Fury and Captain Marvel should still remember him, right? Them being off-world. Big fan of all three of you. Thanks for the show. Yeah, what do you guys think about that? Is that a thing?
A couple people have asked that on Twitter too. I am going to go ahead and make the assumption that it is within this universe. And I know the wording doesn't line up with that, and actually technically everybody putting on their like magical nerd Hermione Granger glasses is correct. Like they are saying Earth, but I kind of think the spell is sort of our universe specific. Like I think that the spell is like anyone within this universe will not remember this thing. I think it's more focused on Earth because aside from a couple people who are off planet and every alien he fought was dead. So yeah, a couple people off planet that wouldn't, I think that's what it is, but I think it's a good catch, and maybe it's like a slight, they should have just maybe reworded that slightly.
Yeah, I just thought he meant anybody who knew him would forget him, no matter where they are. I just thought that's what they meant, but might be right. The off-world situation might play into this.
Yeah,
Phil,
that's.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say
good.
that's kind of my impression too. I don't feel like that's sort of like the back door for Nick Fury to remember him. Right. I think they probably that was something after the fact that they're like, maybe as Vogel said, we should have reworded that a little.
Yeah. All right, Phil P in here says, Merry Christmas, Geek Buddies. A stellar film, great writing, great acting, and does Matt Murdock's brilliant cameo cement the Punisher's coming for real? On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to John Bernthal, how excited are you? Love from my London bathroom. Phil and Spurs should have won. Phil, no, Spurs got lucky today, and you know it. You missed 5 open goal opportunities, and you got a bullshit red card on Robertson when Kane should have gone out in that first half. You know it, Phil. So don't start. Don't bring that here. This is Spider-Man talk.
It's like you're speaking a foreign language.
Sports ball.
Coming up next. Laura, I go to you on this one because you mentioned you had a reaction to Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox showing up in this. Are you a big Daredevil fan? Did you watch that series, or do you just have a joy of Charlie Cox?
I just recently rewatched the series, and I had not watched season 3. I was watching it when it was originally on, but for whatever reason I stopped. Didn't watch season 3. I didn't watch any of the Defenders, or I started watching some of the spinoffs. So I have had a journey with Daredevil. Most of it has been recent, but I just have felt like a very strong connection to this adorable character. I'm so glad he's coming to the MCU, because I just was so sad when I sat and finished watching season 3. I was just like, well, God, now what? I didn't. Now what? And I'm so glad that he showed up. However, this is my one critique. I was annoyed with how small this was, that there wasn't ever an appearance in the costume, that there wasn't anything other than that one scene in the apartment. That is my one critique of the movie. I wish there was more Charlie Cox Daredevil. I wish there was Daredevil costume. That's really my only critique of the film, but I was very excited to see him.
I think we're going to see a lot of Charlie Cox this before we see him in the costume. And we talked about this, I think, when the rumors came out, which is Matt Murdock gets used a lot in other comics, not as Daredevil, but as Matt Murdock. He is sort of like the go-to lawyer for superhero business. So having him just kind of show up in this one scene and be the guy that we should call this guy Matt Murdock. Let's see what he has to say. I actually loved that it was... Again, it was that little bit of fan service, but I don't use fan service in the bad way. What Marvel did in this movie was the correct way that you should do fan service, which is, hey, guys, he's here. He's in the world. Yeah. Yes, he's still Daredevil. He caught the brick. It was just enough to be like, hey, we're good. He's here. Now let's just see what happens and where we can go. But it was just enough, because I think that with so much going on with all the multiversal villains and the other Spider-Mans, if all of a sudden Daredevil had showed up too, it would have been I'm always super nervous about that point that a movie collapses under its own weight. And I'm not saying they couldn't have pulled it off. They probably could have. But I was like, okay, that's good. You gave me plenty. I'm just happy for what we got.
Yeah.
No. I know I'm being a greedy fan. I hear it. I know. But I still want it.
Fair enough.
See, that actually leads to one of the very few critiques I have, and I hope we can talk about that here without me getting yelled at. I thought the big problem as we start the movie is not only has Spider-Man's identity been revealed, but he allegedly is responsible for Mysterio's death, and with all of this destruction that has happened in London. The solve for this is very, very fast, which is fine because ultimately, that's our launch pad to get to the bigger story. But I do think, because I agree, Laura, I would like to have seen a little bit more of Matt Murdock. What we got was awesome. Would have been even better if we had no idea that it was coming. But I think there was a way probably to weave in that his one problem hasn't been solved and that he's being held responsible for all these terrible things that happened, as well as the loved ones in his life. Their lives have now effectively been wrecked as well. I mean, that's one of my few critiques.
All right, BK Finest says the studios have to do better when it comes to leaks. Some of my enjoyment of certain moments was dulled because I knew it was coming. I still love this movie, but it would have been great if some things had come as a surprise. Thoughts? Yeah, we had a number of people spoil stuff. A number of people, Variety was dropping spoilers again. Clearly, they are untouchable because They've done it now twice with Eternals and Spider-Man No Way Home. So this seems to be a decision they've made, and maybe tacitly with the agreement of the studio to be able to do this because they keep getting invited back. So what do you guys think about it? Should the studio be more? Should they do more leaks? I mean, Mike, you've worked for a studio. You were kind of speculating on a previous Geek Buddy show that Sony might be the one that wanted to leak a bunch of stuff and Marvel did not.
I don't think that it's Sony wants to leak. I think that it's Sony was more than happy to say we should get behind promoting that this is all the Spider-Man because hey, Into the Spider-Verse did so good for us. Let's double down. And Kevin Feige's like, no, I want to keep these. Like Marvel's big on keeping the secrets. They love that opening weekend surprise.
Right.
I don't know that it's the studios need to do better because honestly, studios don't want to leak.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always loose lips that come out and say stuff, but it's not that studios. It's not a strategy that's like let's get this information out there. What you see in the trailers, what you see them revealing in interviews is what the strategy is. And it's always a strategy. If an actor is on a talk show and says, oh, I shouldn't have said that, it's a lie. He or she was supposed to say it. And then when the stuff comes out online, I mean, the problem is the era that we live in. Like we live in the social media era where information gets distributed so quickly and so rapidly. Yeah. All it takes is one person coming out of a screening and saying, hey, it's Harry Styles. And it literally is flooded across the internet within seconds. And the studios can't do anything to stop it. Yeah. I mean, when I was working on My Little Pony, not quite the level of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but still, we would like the bronies, like the My Little Pony fans, were hacking into the animation studio systems.
That's insane.
And then dumping all the information online. Like, we didn't want that to happen. Once it happens, you sort of roll with it. You're like, well, they know this. Let's lean into it. But like, you know, it's just like there's just fans want to. It's like I've said, it's the Christmas morning present problem. Yeah. We all want to know what the presents are under the tree, but if you open them up and peek, it's not as fun on Christmas morning. So we just have to decide which one we want.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because you kind of look at like where the source of the leaks are. I mean, like, because I don't know. I mean, obviously some of them are coming. The call is coming from within the house, and then you have situations where overzealous fans who also have skills in hacking literally break into stuff via the computer. I know that on the shows that I've worked on where secrecy is a big thing, the NDA that they have you sign is very thick and very detailed and is very clear about like, hey, if you are the reason something gets out, like you can be held sort of like financially responsible. I'd be curious, like with certain leaks, like not necessarily the variety thing, because that's more a case of someone seeing the movie and then blabbing, but you know, behind the scenes photos, you know, or early like visual effects tests. Yeah. If the studios do find out who the individual was who leaked it, like, do they follow up on those threats? Yeah. Because if they do, it would be great to publicize that to try to discourage it.
Yeah, that's fair.
What I will say for to the credit of the movie is that even knowing what was coming, and Shannon kind of said this earlier, like knowing that Andrew and Toby are in this movie, I guess it took away my enjoyment a little bit. Like I wasn't surprised, but the way that they came into the movie, Ned doing the portals, the whole way it happened was so well executed and so good that it still gave me a thrill despite the fact that I knew it was coming.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden finding out that Ned has magic in his family and making it a little bit of a joke, I thought was brilliant, and that fit within the Spider-Man universe. So that when he used it, his grandma saw him use it and is like, "Oh my God, he does have the magic!" You know, it was brilliant. Then having Andrew Garfield take a cobweb out of the corner, it's genius. Laura, I go to this one. AL808 says, now that all the rules are out the window with the multiverses, do you see Sony bringing back Andrew Garfield for his own Spidey movie? You mentioned that earlier. Do you think that's a possibility?
I do, but I don't know if it's going to be multiverse adjacent. I think it's we're just going to do the Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 3 that we didn't get, or at least I kind of hope that maybe they'll cover some of that. Although I don't know if I desperately need the Rhino story. Maybe not.
No.
But I think that there's definitely a demand for it. I think there's a demand to have him come back in this role. I think people really enjoyed it, and I think that the idea of having him, God, I heard somebody refer to him as like an elderly Spider-Man as like a mentor figure. I was like, oh my God, I think the actor's 38. Like, please God, don't. But I still think that, having him come back in some sense like that is definitely.
I mean, there's a valley between mentor and elderly. I mean, that seems like an unnecessary shot.
Yeah.
Have you met the kids nowadays? I think there isn't that much of a valley as we used to think. Mike, thoughts on this? Do you think Andrew Garfield comes back?
Yeah, I think I think Tobey Maguire, it was lovely to see him, and he did a nice job, and he was very sweet, and he did kind of play the
elder statesman.
More like youth pastor or camp counselor type Spider-Man. Like he was like at that, like he was an authority figure but still young. Like I'm not gonna go he was the elder. But I think that the reason you see everybody kind of clamoring for more of an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man 3 is that just given the script, he had so much more to play with. Yes. Like Tobey came in, and Tobey is kind of the Spider-Man that has lived the Spider-Man life and has kind of figured stuff out. Like he has that whole scene with Andrew where he's like, yeah, it took us a while, but me and MJ figured things out and it's really good now. So he doesn't have a lot of a journey left, at least in what they've given him. Now, if they want to do a Spider-Man 4 and give him more, your old villains are coming, I'm sure they could come up with one if they wanted to. But I think the reason you're seeing people clamor for this is Andrew Garfield brought this shade to Peter Parker that we didn't actually see in the first two movies as much, which is kind of neurotic, kind of like, I'm not as cool as the other Spider-Man. I've gone through this shit. After Gwen Stacy, I went down this really bad road. Like, he feels like a Spider-Man who still has a lot of growth left to do emotionally and personally. And so I think that, you kind of come out of the movie and like he gets the moment where he saves MJ, which is great, but we're kind of like, I could spend some more time with this neurotic guy who just found out that the other Spider-Man got to fight aliens and he hasn't done that yet. And he's really feeling a little bit insecure about it. And he wants to really wrap that up.
Yeah, I'd be down with that. BK Finest says, what do you guys think is going on with Wong? Sorcerer Supreme in a fight ring scam? Is that what we think is happening here? Gentlemen,
I don't think that's a fight ring scam. That is training for the Abomination. That Wong is training him for something. He has been hired by someone to do something. When they go back through that portal, that is a very sophisticated. That might be the Raft. I don't know.
Wong is clearly the most responsible character in the entire MCU. He was dealing with a lot of shit. He deals with Stephen Strange all day. He needs to blow off some steam and go fight in the ring. You let that man go fight in the ring.
True. Let him take his vacation. Right, Laura? I mean, were you surprised by the Sorcerer Supreme reveal, Laura? And then the Doctor Strange retort, because I got blipped for 5 years. He took over.
Honestly, I was surprised because I just kind of forgot I forgot that he was, I don't know, the fact that he was sort of, he seemed like he was always kind of above Doctor Strange. And so I don't know. I love the comparison though. Like he's definitely the parent of the MCU. Like somebody has to oversee it. What I'm not remembering very clearly is like what exactly his role was in Shang-Chi. I only saw it the one time. And I feel like maybe there was a post-credit scene that was also hinting to what else was going on, but I don't remember.
He was connected to the Avengers now.
Yeah, right. And then with the post-credit scene, he senses something within the rings that is possibly a beacon for either help or harm, and they want to figure that out. So the fact that it's not Strange doing it, it's Wong doing it, lets you know that he is the Sorcerer Supreme. Maybe that was kind of a subtle hint, and then they really put it out there in this movie. So I love that. All right, Joshua Canova says, hey, Geek Buddies, first time I get to listen live. Well, thanks, Joshua. I've been watching Rocha since he was wearing red shirts. Holy shit. 2016. I flew from Dallas to my old hometown of Miami to watch this with my high school friends. There was no way I could have watched this movie alone. Damn, flew to Miami to be with his friends to watch this movie. Wow, the reach, the attraction of this movie really kind of just blows me away. What do you guys think about this?
I love that.
Yeah, I mean that makes total sense to me.
All right.
I mean, Johnny, you've driven up many a time to see a movie with me and Mike that you've already seen before. I mean, so I mean, granted, it's not a plane flight, but I mean, still, the freeways in Southern California may as well be an airport. I mean, it is not always
Yeah, listen, I don't know what the flight time is from Dallas to Miami, but if it's under 3 hours, I've done it too. I've done it too with my old friends to see a film. And you know what? To reveal something, I was going to drive up and surprise Michael for his birthday Thursday night and see the movie. I had a ticket reserved, but my car was not fixed from the car accident a couple weeks ago in time. They had a delay it a couple of days, so unfortunately I couldn't make it up, but I was planning to drive up and surprise and hang out and have some fun watching the movie with you guys. But
I know, I heard.
Oh, okay. Did you? All right, let's move on. Carol
heard and not appreciative.
Apparently. Carol says, hello all. Just wanted to thank you guys again, especially for doing these reviews. My audience this morning was lame. Apparently, I was the only one that knew it right away when Andrew showed up. Also, I too called Andrew would be the one to save MJ. No, you can't take it now. It's mine. It's mine. I'm sorry. You can't take it. Mild-mannered comic nerd says, hey all, hope all is well. It hit me harder to know that Aunt May was the Uncle Ben since there was no Uncle Ben tombstone. I had the best time seeing this in 4D, or 4XD. This is the best live-action Spider-Man movie. Love you all. Laura, I'm loving your Gwen outfit.
Thank you very much.
And Jim P says, piggybacking off of what Vogel mentioned earlier, not sure if this was the original plan or not, but it was super gutsy for Sony/Marvel Studios to essentially do a 6th movie, including Civil War and 2 Avengers films. Let me do this again. Essentially do a 6th movie, including Civil War and 2 Avengers origin film for this MCU version of Spidey. Yeah, Vogel will take this. I mean, and also the fact that did Feige plan this whole thing out? We talked about it before. Did Feige plan this whole thing out? Did he know that he was going to kill off Aunt May in the 3rd movie and knew people were going to bitch him out that there was no Uncle Ben, but he knew what he was doing the whole time? What do you think about
Again, I don't think so. I think a lot of this is you make a choice. There's a thing that happens when you get to tell a story over a long, long period of time, which is you're kind of going along ahead of the audience. You know what's working, you know what you like, and then as you get to the next season of a show or the next movie and you're putting pieces together, you're like, ooh, shit, if we do this, it'll look like we had it planned all along. And it never is fully what you planned at the beginning. There's always a lot of stuff, like real life stuff, actors that want to come in, actors that want to leave, different things that happen. But what I will say is this. The reason it works is because in the Spider-Man story, when Uncle Ben dies, by definition of the fact that it's the origin, we understand that that is emotionally hard for Peter because we're told it is. Oh, I'm Peter Parker. I live with my Aunt May and my Uncle Ben. My Uncle Ben is the best. He has really looked out for me. Oh God, this horrible thing happened. Same thing that happens with Superman. Same thing that happens with Batman. Like that story at the beginning, it's a parental figure. They die. We understand that that's tragic. And so we're sad for the character because we know that they're sad, but we just met this person, so we don't really feel it. Whereas now, we've known Aunt May. We have seen her through multiple movies. We've seen her discover that Peter was Spider-Man. We've seen her with Happy. We've seen her do all these things. And so when this moment happens in the movie and she gets hit by that glider, we are all, I mean, I kind of thought maybe they were going to do it, and I still was like, no, she's fine. She's fine. She's getting up. She's fine. And then what Marisa Tomei does with her whole very confused, like, oh, are we okay? Cool. Wait, what happened? Oh, okay. Like they just gut punched you. But when she turns to him and she goes, you need to listen to me. You have a lot of power. And with that power comes a lot of responsibility. I literally burst into tears because I realized that we now have a character that we care about. Yeah. Because we've been with her for 6 years or however many years it's been. And we are now having to lose her while the character loses her. And it is so much harder and so much more emotional and so much more affecting. And additionally, the entire theme of this movie of what Peter is trying to do. Should I give up on these heroes or should I try and help them? What she is telling him is not some kind of broad philosophical, this is a thing you should consider for life. She is specifically saying, this is your this specific thing is your responsibility. So they managed to take something that we all have known forever and ever and ever and make his origin, make that moment so real, which is why when he is up on that rooftop and just beat up and crying, we're like, this is the ultimate Spider-Man movie we've ever seen in cinema. This is the moment that we've seen in the other 2 Spider-Man movies, but it's real for us now in a way that it's never been real before.
Yeah, and I think the thing that was so powerful to what you're saying, Mike, is that we saw her in action for 2 movies, and hinted at in the first movie that she is a person who takes care of other people. She works at a homeless shelter. She feeds people. She puts in action the things she tells Tom or her Peter there in that moment. Like, there is foundation, there's basis, there are actions to support why she's telling him to act this way and why she's telling him to be this way, a final lesson before she goes. And she's not just saying it as you said, a philosophical concept. She actually puts it in practice and wants her legacy of influence on him to be a part of that, to shape that with him. And you're right, that rooftop moment, he could go either way, right? Because and it's interesting because he wants to kill Osborn. He wants to kill him from top to bottom, but the other Spider-Man slowly with MJ, with Ned, slowly walk him off that roof, literally and figuratively, to do the right thing. Even though in that moment near the end, he's about to do it, Toby's the one that stops him. And it's so interesting.
And again though, that is literally the Spider-Man origin story.
Yep.
It's just they replaced random criminal who shoots Uncle Ben with Norman Osborn. Right. So they sort of like, it's the same thing. Like, Spider-Man wanted to kill that guy and then doesn't. And Spider-Man wants to kill Norman Osborn and doesn't. And then along the way, they also completely fix Norman Osborn and manage to make Willem Dafoe Tom Holland's greatest villain in 3 movies in just one movie, which is a really amazing hat trick.
Absolutely. Laura, any thoughts on the Marisa Tomei, Aunt May storyline, how this all went down in her demise in the film and its effect on Peter?
I have a couple of thoughts. I think one of the things that really struck me, especially the second time I watched this scene where we have Peter Parker talking to May as she's dying, major Simba and Mufasa energy coming out of that. Like, the scene just, it lingers even longer, I think, in that scene where they're like, I mean, there's so many cuts back to Tom where he's just like, he's like in full-blown denial that this is happening and just like keeps just being like, May, and it just, I mean, like, it just killed me every single time. And it lasted, I think, so much longer than maybe a different director would have allowed. And I'm glad that they were willing to hang on to that beat for a little bit. One other point I wanted to make was that, you know, up until this point in the story, we as the audience knew a lot of what was going on, more so than the characters in the movie. We knew the villains that they were bringing in from these other universes. The characters in this story didn't. So we were in kind of a unique position in that we just knew more. But in that moment when May dies, we are all of a sudden thrown right back in with Peter. And I think it just makes that emotional beat so much more powerful that we circle back to that point. The last point I wanted to hit was the question of, did they plan out this trilogy? My guess is yes, because, and I'm not naming names, we know what it looks like when you don't plan out a trilogy.
Or change directors.
And this was executed so much better
than with the fire.
Other franchises that have really not planned their trilogies. I'm just saying.
I think that we will all agree that this trilogy is executed better than certain other trilogies in other galaxies far away. But here's the proof to me that that is not necessarily true. Like, the other thing they did, and I know we're about to talk in the villains in a minute, this kind of segues into that a little bit, which is they managed to they did a really good thing that maybe other people in other trilogies didn't do. So if you have a movie or a series of movies that you don't particularly like, you can do one of two things. You can just directly do the opposite in the next movie and piss everybody off and say, hey, this happened in Last Jet or whatever random movie you're talking about. And then this happened here. And it seems like you just went back on half of what was in that movie. I feel like I have whiplash. But they took a bunch of villains from several Spider-Man movies, some of which people don't really love that much.
Yeah.
And they didn't drastically reinvent them. They didn't change the motivations. Like, every character from the other trilogy, the other Spider-Man franchises that showed up in this movie picked up literally right where their stories left off. Willem Dafoe was doing the exact same Norman Osborn stuff he was doing. They got rid of the costume pretty early on, probably for the best. Otto Octavius was being controlled by those tentacles. Flint Marko just wanted to get home to see his daughter. Electro was really mad on power and didn't want to go back to who he was. Kirk Connors was just lizarding around. But like, each one of them, they picked up the pieces and they stuck the landing on these characters in a way that only Marvel could do. Like, they took something that they had no control over originally and actually made it look like it was planned out well.
Yeah.
So I think that we're the truth is probably in the middle of both of us. I think they have a good solid framework of here's where we would like to go. But I think that when different things happen, when they decide they're going to get to the multiverse earlier, or even the fact that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness originally was supposed to come out before this movie. Mm-hmm. So like they've completely flipped that. Like there was supposed to be this whole multiversal business that kind of maybe opened up to this Spider-Man situation, and they had to fix that. But they make it all look like it's been planned all along, which I think is really impressive.
Absolutely. Let's take a moment here. We got 790 of you all watching us live right now. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you all to please hit a like on this video right now. Hit that like button. Also, if you would, subscribe to the channel down below. I'm trying to break 20,000 subscribers before the end of 2021, and I'm thinking around 220 away from being able to do that. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that bell button so you see when I'm dropping content just like this for you all to enjoy and have some fun with. So, yeah, subscribe. Hit that red button, for God's sakes. Here we go. Haunted Autumn says, I loved NWH. My only issue is forgetting Mysterio would have stopped the identity reveal and retained memories of those who knew before said reveal. Hard to believe an MIT candidate and doctor wouldn't possess the critical thinking skill to consider this when attempting the first spell.
Read the first part again.
Sure.
What they're saying is, so instead of doing a spell where you say everyone has to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, if you just had everybody forget Mysterio and just Mysterio never existed, nobody remembered Quentin Beck at all, then by definition, nobody would remember what Quentin Beck said. Therefore, although I don't
agree. I don't agree.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Okay. Tell us, Sorcerer Supreme.
Because taking away someone's existence, the memory of someone's existence doesn't necessarily negate what they put out in the world. The memories could still be there for the information. You just don't know where it came from. Does that make sense? Because again, like we had. Vogel, I'm assuming we're going to talk about this, but we had a very cyclical conversation after the movie with Daniel, Mike's brother, who had a lot of logic issues with the spell. He's like, that doesn't make sense. Are you telling me Happy doesn't remember giving he knows he gave a Spidey costume to someone? Like, that doesn't make logical sense. And Vogel kept repeating, like, magic isn't logical. Like, that's at the very end. And then Daniel would come in with another good point, and Vogel would repeat his original point, like, yes, great point. That's a logical point. Magic isn't logical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's read any fantasy novel, which I'm sure most of the people listening have, like, you have to be really, really specific when you cast your magical spells, because it's almost like magic is always looking for that loophole. And like, so the question is, even if nobody remembered Quentin Beck, would they remember what J. Jonah Jameson said on Bugle.net? Because he just said that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Or does forgetting Quentin Beck mean that J. Jonah Jameson never would have said that? Or did he say it, but we don't remember where the information came from? So I think it gets to one of those things where you are correct that an MIT critical thinker would come up with something like that, but sometimes an MIT critical thinker is not one step ahead of Gandalf, if you know what I mean.
Fair point. All right, let's jump into this one, and this will segue us into talking about the villains and everyone's performance. Red Dixon says, or Dizon says, love you guys. I love how Molina and Dafoe still acted as if Raimi was still directing them, and it worked. Jamie Foxx MCU killed it. He was like at New Cool School and was allowed to be an actual person. Sony owes Kevin Feige a huge thank you. Yeah, I'm curious, Laura, you've just watched all these movies back to back to prepare you for this one. What was your feeling as you watched Molina as Doc Ock and Willem Dafoe back as Goblin and also Jamie Foxx back as Electro? What was your feeling watching all of this through this movie?
I think Jamie Foxx was the biggest improvement for me. And not just because he was the biggest, his character had changed quite a bit over the course of the Amazing Spider-Man movie that he did appear in, but this was just a much better executed, much better use of Jamie Foxx. We got, I think, a lot better use of like his comedy chops in this film, and I think it worked really well. Much better than I think the character work in the Amazing Spider-Man films. But I think in terms of like seeing Alfred Molina and Dafoe back in, it was like it was like they'd never left. For me, it felt like it was just meant to be or something. It was written in the stars that Dafoe was going to be our beloved flying green elf in all of these Spider-Man movies. He's just so perfect in the role. And it was really nice to get to see him come back and then even get all of the sort of subtle things he brought to that performance in the Raimi movies to this performance again. It was just like he never left. He never took off the suit.
Yeah, fair. Shannon, what'd you think of all these guys coming back? What worked for you? What was your favorite part of all of them being in this movie?
Well, to the Jamie Foxx of it, it's interesting because his transition in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 from this kind of nebbish, almost Joel Schumacher-like nerd character to this super cool, electrified villain who, as Laura said, like too cool for school. I thought that transition made no sense. I'm like, this is a different person, and like you can make the argument that it unlocked this thing in his personality, but it was like, nah, that's a different guy. But they kept it consistent in No Way Home. It's like, this is where he ended up, this is where he's going to be. Jamie Foxx is a really great actor, and he's very, very funny, and like you did get the sense of danger from him while still delivering some very, very funny lines. I mean, when you were talking about like the open floor plan of the condo, I was like, man, that's really funny. I mean, like it was interesting. The portrayal, Thomas Hayden Church's portrayal. Oh, I was kind of wondering, like, are you keeping him in sort of his sand version because the reveal at the end is that much better, or is it because it's cheaper to make a sand person than try to de-age Thomas Hayden Church? Right. Which I thought was like, I was like, I'm curious where they fell on that. And then going to Dafoe and Molina, I think this is probably, from what I remember of the first Spider-Man movie, I feel like Willem Dafoe was way scarier in this, as Tom Holland is just raining blows. Like, you see that crazy Joker smile that he has. I mean, you get kind of shades of Heath Ledger in Dark Knight. I mean, he's just bang, 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 and he still has this kind of fang smile. And I'm with you, John. I mean, Molina is just such a joy to watch. And as he basically saves the Spider-Man at the end, that you get, I just love the way how accurate they are, how a bigger guy would look hanging up from these arms, that like you have these crazy strong metal arms, and he looks a little dowdy, but I mean, you see this expression on his face, and then the moment you realize he's playing possum, and you get that wonderful moment with Tobey Maguire, and you get the original score as well. I mean, it was just such a great, powerful moment. Like, I mean, again, I don't know if you guys had read this today, but apparently, like, and like, I didn't read the source, so this could be bullshit. Tom Holland said the original marketing plan is that they were going to market it as a Spider-Man versus Doctor Strange movie and try to keep the villains completely quiet. Wow. Which, didn't happen. I'm just trying to live in that world, live in that alternate reality of like, okay, we're sort of expecting Civil War 2.0, but this time it's Spidey versus Doctor Strange, and what that would look like the first time you see one of those tentacles pop out. Like, would have been amazing, but still wonderful.
I'm going to climb on a limb, and Mike, just real quick, I want to say something before you go, brother. I know people are mad at the reveals. I know people are mad the stuff broke. But don't be surprised if maybe that was one of the reasons why people were like, went in the numbers that they went. Like, those reveals are right before the pre-sale tickets, and you could maybe say that all that stuff, people wanted to see it. Yeah, we know they're in the movie. Great. But how are they in the movie? How do they come into what's the part they play in the movie, the overall plot? All of that might have motivated a lot. And I know so a lot of people who were tweeting at me today about my tweet I posted earlier about West Side Story in comparison, they were like, I went to see it because I didn't want people spoiling it for me the next day. Like, I had to go see it. So certainly there was an event feel to this one, and maybe the spoilers and something helped because of the villains, seeing the villains and the heroes coming in. But anyway, Michael, thoughts on overall the villains and what stood out for you? What was your favorite parts, and how you thought, as a showrunner, how you thought they weave them into the overall story of the movie?
Well, I think that's the thing that really struck me the most, is that it's really easy. Like, okay, well, these are the bad guys. My brother said this. We were talking about it after the movie. Like, it's really easy to be like, oh, here's a bunch of bad guys. They're mad that they're in this universe, but they realize that they want to get some cool power, and Spider-Man is in their way, and they're all going to try and kill him. And you know what? There's a movie there. It's fun. He and then the other Spider-Man have to come in and help him. But this movie allowed each one of these characters to be 100% who they were and let that dictate the story. Yeah. And so what I mean by that is, like, Otto Octavius is not a bad guy. Like, he became bad because of what happened to him in the movie, but really deep down, he's a good person. Kirk Connors, that lizard thing was a bad move, but Kirk Connors originally was a good dude. Flint Marco's not really a villain. And even Electro, to the stupid transformation from sort of Joel Schumacher villain to what he became, Jamie Foxx speaks to that. He literally says, you didn't see me before this happened to me. I don't want to go back to that. Yeah. So they took all the pieces and let them live in this world and be 100% who they were and act naturally. And I think a lot of times when we see a movie and we're like, this feels a little contrived, or this was cheesy, or I didn't really buy it, it's because a character is doing something because the writer or the executive or the director wants them to do it, but it's not justified. Mm-hmm. And with each of these villains, I was just really surprised by the variety. They weren't a monolith. There was no moment where Norman Osborn came in and said, all right, guys, we're all going to work as a team to take out Spider-Man. Like, they were all working completely to their own ends, and it really, really worked. And to Shannon's point about Norman Osborn, and to what I was saying earlier about him now being, to me, in my opinion, Tom Holland's biggest villain, is that Green Goblin isn't as scary in the Sam Raimi version because he does have, he's not going to kill Aunt May. Like, he comes into the hospital where Aunt May is, and he's floating above her and kind of going, ah, ha, 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 and she goes, no, and he flies off. Like, because it was sort of an earlier era comic book movie, there was still comic book rules. Like, he kind of gives Spider-Man the whole join me, Spider-Man. This Norman Osborn, same guy from that movie, with the training wheels taken off. This guy is like, hey, for me to turn you into the person that I know that I want you to become, for me to get past all those morals and ethics and all those things that you have, I have to push you to your limit. I'm going to kill this bitch. And seeing someone who is that unhinged, and he was that unhinged in the Raimi movie, but that unhinged with the permission to do whatever he wants to do is so much scarier because we don't know what's going to happen. Right. Like this movie got to the point where I was like, well, we're clearly fucking up Peter Parker's life. Mm-hmm. And Norman Osborn is the one to do it. And that tracks from comic book lore. How far are they going to go? There was a moment where I thought MJ was going to die. Like, I was like, how far are we doing this? Like, I don't even know. And I think letting the villains be who they were always meant to be, but letting them really push it even further and letting that dictate the story was such a win. And then circling back to Tom Holland, this movie, the whole movie being like Doctor Strange and everybody being like, we got to send these people back to die. That's what it is. And Peter Parker doing everything in his power to help the villains, not defeat them, not stop them from taking all the tech from Stark Tower and taking over this universe. The entire movie is, I just want to help these guys. Yeah. Which is the most Peter Parker thing that you can do.
And it's the toughest thing to do. And you're right, Mike. I mean, that's the thing that struck me. I agreed with Peter initially. Let him go back. That's one less evil person to deal with. And then you're watching his journey, and you have to kind of self-reflect if you have those feelings like, damn, the heroic choice is to deal with the ramifications and try to save them, try to work hard to make, Goblin's going to do what he's going to do. And he tries to lead a revolt or rebellion with the people who were involved there using Electro's help. But overall, everyone's going to do what they're going to, but overall, Peter is doing the right thing, even though it's the hardest thing. And he's honoring Aunt May by doing the right thing as well in his own way. And then with the help of the Peters, I loved the villains coming in. I enjoyed the way I loved that it was not a Sinister Six movie, but kind of a Sinister Six movie. I thought that was genius that they didn't put a big red neon or big neon sign on it. They let it play out. And Molina, fantastic. Willem Dafoe was fantastic. His Norman Osborn, as you guys said, one of the most chilling interpretations. And that's the difference. And that's why I have a little worry about Multiverse of Madness, but that's my own thing. I just love what Jon Watts was able to bring. Look, and Jon Watts stepped up to the plate. Let's put that on the table as well. We haven't even mentioned him as a director to be handed coming out of independent film to be handed the first film, and it's kind of a smaller ground-based feel. Then that second film, you're going to Europe, you've got Mysterio. This is a little more challenging. You got the MCU to weave in. Now this third film, you're going way out there, and it's incredible what he was able to do cinematically in this movie and tell the story as big as he did and pull it off. I mean, Jon Watts deserves an incredible amount of credit for being able to do that from top to bottom. I think that's what I had to say about that. All right. Sid Dave says, should they make more Toby Andrew Spidey movies? I think we all agree they should. Yes, I think we're all in agreement with that.
I don't know.
If they could,
really?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know about Toby. And I don't think that he would. I mean, if you look at like what he's been up to recently, he hasn't done much. I mean, like, wasn't he like, didn't he make a lot of money gambling? And that's like his whole thing is just like running underground gambling rings. Like, I feel like that's his whole jam now. He doesn't even need to act.
Was that Molly's Game?
That's Molly's Game.
Yeah,
that's
he was supposed to be the guy. He was supposed to be Michael Cera in Molly's Game.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Laura. Like, I don't feel like we need any more of Toby's story personally. I mean, I think I would like to get a little more Andrew Garfield, but also, with the next Tom Holland trilogy, if that is in fact a thing, I mean, I'm hoping we see Miles Morales. I would rather get a new Spider-Man rather than go over ground that we've already been on.
Yeah, it's time.
Fair.
Yeah, I see that.
Candles Jr. says, this trilogy was the origin story. Loved it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone just randomly says, I completely agree with Vogel. All right, Justin A. Square.
By the way, don't even know what it was about, but I like it.
Someone asked earlier if I was going to be on Goblin Island. No, there is no Goblin. I'm not going to be on Goblin Island. He was a bad guy.
Norman had a point.
Yeah, we stuck it in Toby. Rumor is Toby will show up in Doctor Strange too. Oh, there's a lot of rumors about that. Thoughts? Feelings?
Rumors about Doctor Strange 2 are going to get wilder than No Way Home rumors.
It's fair.
People are like, the X-Men are going to show up. Like, Dirk Diggler's going to come in. The Scooby-Doo mystery machine is going to drive through. Like, who the fuck knows? Like, it's going to get wild.
Yeah, of the rumors that I've heard, I wouldn't say that Toby, of my wish list, Toby wouldn't be at the top.
Really?
But not really. I mean, of the ones that I've heard, and I don't want to discuss them because God forbid we're right about something. But no, I mean, of the rumors that I've heard, there are much cooler ones, like live action iterations of certain characters that we haven't seen in live action yet.
Fair.
That I think would be maybe a little cooler.
Okay. Daniel Zambrano says, we all thought we'd skip the origin, but we're being treated to the best, fullest version of it. From May's death, is Peter finally becoming Spidey? Masterful. Love your reviews, guys. Laura will be Star Wars champ. There you go.
I think it is, but I think it is true. It's like they did this weird circuitous route, but like we've never gotten I mean, who the fuck takes 6 movies to do an origin story? I mean, it's crazy. Right. But like that's kind of what we've gotten. Like we've gone on this huge journey with Peter Parker, and we end with him alone in an apartment, all by himself, making his Spider-Man costume and going out to do what Spider-Man does.
Yeah.
Which is and potentially going to take photos for dailybugle.net. You know, I mean, like we'll see, who knows where it's going to go, but like we'll end up with a Peter Parker that is at the beginning of the Peter Parker that we know, but we've gone on this journey. And I think, everything from Hawkeye to WandaVision to everything, Marvel has just taken us on these journeys that being able to live with these characters as long as we've lived with them to the point where we're now seeing characters kind of having trauma from stuff that they've dealt with in the past, whether that be Hawkeye and Natasha or Peter and May, and that we're going to hopefully continue on with them. And it's just crazy to me. I love it. I love it.
Any thoughts on this, Laura and Shannon?
I like the note about Peter finally becoming Spidey. And I think that the interpretation that I took away from the end of the film was also that that youthful energy that I mentioned that Tom Holland brings, like, I feel like we finally saw like a much more grown up. Yeah. I mean, even just like in his attitude and the way he carried himself in some of those end scenes, like this, whatever iteration we get of Tom Holland Spider-Man next, I think it's just gonna be a much more adult feel, I think, which I'm kind of looking forward to. I mean, I love the youthful energy he brings to the role, but to sort of see him grow in that way, I think it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be very different though. And I wonder how dark they're going to be willing to go with it when we get to movie 1 of this next trilogy.
Yeah, and we see him preparing to take his GED, which based off the intellect of Peter Parker, he's going to ace in spades. But like, what does college look like for this Peter Parker who has no Tony Stark money, has no he's literally starting from from the very beginning. Like, what is that going to look like? I mean, is this genius going I think it's really fertile storytelling ground. I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of people speculating we would get Norman Osborn or Oscorp or anything like that, but how does that work now that he's met the Willem Dafoe Norman Osborn? So I don't think any of these villains or their alter egos can show up now in this next iteration of Spidey. Mike, what do you think?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I was one of the people that would have loved to see the MCU take on Norman Osborn and really building up a Norman Osborn to be this great thing, but they kind of have done it. Like, I mean, they brought Willem Dafoe in and he served the in one movie, he served the purpose that you need Norman Osborn to serve, which is he fucked up Spider-Man's life. And I know, like, as I saw in the chat, someone was saying, well, what about Mysterio? And he was great. Like, I think what they did with Mysterio was amazing. Like, I think they turned Mysterio into an A+ villain, which is impossible to do.
Agreed.
But Quentin Beck revealed Spider-Man's identity, which is shitty. Manipulated Spider-Man, lied to everybody, was really, really clever in the way he did it. But Norman Osborn stole his heart.
Yeah.
Norman Osborn took everything from Peter Parker. And so Norman Osborn has done his worst. I don't know that you can bring another Norman Osborn in. I don't think Peter Parker's going within 10 miles of anyone named Osborn ever again. But even if he was going to, I don't think that it would do it. So I think Shannon's right. I think we're going to see a Peter that is struggling to survive, can't make ends meet, can barely get his money, but his saving grace is going to be how smart he is. He'll get into college based on his intellect. He'll struggle to survive. He'll take 1,000 different jobs being a teaching assistant or a TA, and that's the Peter Parker that we haven't seen yet. The guy that just can't keep it together and every time he tries to get his life together, something is going to happen that he has to go save the day as Spider-Man that is going to fuck up his life as Peter Parker. And that's where they're going to go. And it's going to be great.
Yeah. Madison J says, how do you feel about the idea that this was a course correction or reboot movie? I really don't like that interpretation personally. Yeah, I don't think it was a course correction. I think this was planned. I know Mikey doesn't 100% agree, but I feel like this was planned all along, that they kind of moved this through the 6 movies, as one of our viewers mentioned, and took this time essentially buying separate issues of a comic book in order to get the origin story totally fleshed out and set so that moment happens in such a powerful and effective way. I think this was maybe somewhat their plan all along. What do you guys think? Was this a course correction, a reboot movie?
I mean, I don't know what there was to correct.
Well, I think the Sony stuff and Electro, a lot of people felt maybe that's a course correction.
No, I mean, but I mean, their stories are done. I mean, when you look at the path that the trilogy of Sony MCU movies were on, in my opinion, they got better and better and better, and they got more successful as they went. Can you argue that if the next trilogy happens, that's a reboot? I mean, kinda, because we've basically reset his universe, and but overall, I mean, it's still the same guy. I mean, it's his story. We're on his journey, and that journey is not being. It's going forward.
Yeah, that seems fair. Yeah, they reset the universe in that he's poor again, that he doesn't have MJ, he doesn't have Aunt May. And by the way, he's lost 2 mentors now in a short amount of time. He's watched Tony die in front of him, and he's watched Aunt May die in front of him. As Laura mentioned, how much more dark are we going? I don't know, but it's interesting to kind of see now as we go into this, kind of reset of Spider-Man, but fully fleshing out Spider-Man so that we have him. So I don't see it as a reset, Laura. I see it as more of a matter of like, they took this time to establish all this stuff. Now we go into the next phase, having all this information. They're not erasing all that information. That information is actually vital to jump into the next trilogy.
I think moving into the next phase is the perfect way to phrase it. I don't like the word course correction either, and I don't think it's appropriate here. Yeah. Maybe when you're looking back at Homecoming or Civil War, even when we first brought Spidey back in, I think maybe you could look at it that way. But I mean, from what I understand about the Andrew Garfield movies, like, if you're talking about a course correction, like there was no course, I don't think, in that sense. Like, I mean, wasn't the whole point of those movies just so Sony could keep the IP? Like, was there even any intention beyond like that very short-sighted purpose? I don't know. Reboot, I don't have as much of a problem with that word. I think that, yeah, you could interpret it that way. But this, I would look back at some of those earlier Tom Holland appearances in the MCU, not necessarily this one as a reboot.
I mean, yeah, it's not like I don't think anybody at Sony nor Marvel felt the need to course correct anything. To Shannon's point, the movies were doing just fine. And even as a reboot, I think Peter Parker's life has been rebooted. Yeah. I think that he had made a choice that is putting him in a very different spot, and that is fertile ground for storytelling. But if he is still in love with the same MJ, if he still wants to be friends with the same Ned, if the Avengers are still running around and Wanda's doing whatever she's doing and young Avengers are popping up all over the place, he's still in the same universe. It's not a reboot. So I think that as long as the MCU is going, Peter's story, it's going to be the same thing that happened in the comics when he had to give up MJ and everything else. That wasn't a reboot of the comics. That was Peter was dealing with something. And so I think part of the story is going to be him living this new life, but part of it is going to be him missing the things from his old life that he doesn't have anymore, primarily probably MJ and Ned. So I think as long as they're a part of it, I don't think that... Now, look, I could be completely wrong. We get to these movies and they're both gone and he meets Gwen Stacy and it's a whole new chapter of his life. And then maybe I would feel like it was more of a reboot, but we'll see. Yeah.
Okay. Dave says, J. Jonah Jameson was like Alex Jones selling snake oil stuff. Well, I think he was modeled after that. All right, let's see. So we're done with those for right now. Let's jump into Andrew and Toby. We've talked about them, but let's jump into how they came into the movie, how they play their roles that they played in the movie. What stood out for you as you were watching them both kind of climb into these roles and then jump in and play within the plot of the movie? Shannon, I'll start with you. What was your reaction seeing Toby or seeing Andrew when he first showed up and then seeing Toby and then their interactions, like when they're coming together to science the shit out of this stuff, when they're fighting and they can't figure out how to fight together because they're three alphas. They've never fought in a team before, which is ironic because Tom has, so he's the one that has to kind of school them. And then the end moment where Toby stops Tom from killing Norman Osborn, and then guides him back, and then Andrew gets that moment of saving MJ.
When Ned opened that portal and you see the tallest, lankiest Spider-Man you've ever seen, it's like, okay, well, we know who's coming in first. Yeah. Look, it was just pure joy watching him take off that hood and that giant head of hair poof out. Yeah, I mean, it was just awesome, and watching his interaction with MJ and Ned, and again, we've already talked about the bread moment, but just how funny that was. I mean, again, I don't know the Garfield movies that well. I didn't see them more than a couple of times each. But it seemed like, I mean, he just slipped right back into the onesie and was brilliant. And Tobey Maguire, I feel like it's been a long time since we've seen Tobey Maguire on screen, and seeing how he is aged and how he's aged, like he still has this kind of slight awkwardness that I always thought made him a great Peter Parker. But watching the three of them together, especially when MJ and Ned get to him on the roof and they say, some people want to see you. And how, I mean, and then to Tom Holland's performance as well, watching how he knows what's going on. He knows the score of the ball game and doesn't want to hear it. And you get to see them all share sort of this, their sort of share, the shared tragedy that they've all had. This leads to another, like, I loved a lot of the humor. This leads to one more kind of little critique. When Tom Holland says, as they're trying to figure out how to work it as a team, he's like, well, just, I don't want to brag, I was in the Avengers. And Tobey Maguire's like, that's great. What is that? As there's lightning in the background and there's sand, I'm like, this seems a little out of place. And I feel like there were a couple of different takes, because at one point Tobey Maguire has a very good, like, why is this even necessary? I'm like, okay, I feel like these are from two different takes right now because they either ratcheted up the intensity or they ratcheted it down. But again, watching the three of them together was just awesome. And then watching Toby and Andrew, like the back cracking moment. I mean, my God. I mean, a little callback to Spider-Man 2 when Tobey Maguire did legit hurt his back and it was in doubt whether or not he was going to be able to return. It was just to me unadulterated joy. Yeah. And the thought that, like, I would not have been surprised if they'd killed Toby. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know if a shiv to the back is gonna kill Spider-Man. And it gave us one of the greatest paracomic moments. And when he's like, it's okay, I've been stabbed before. And after they've had their goodbye, Toby and Andrew are waving, basically looking at the younger version of themselves go off, and Andrew Garfield's like, "You're in pain right now, aren't you?" Like, oh, so much. I mean, it was all like that. To me, that was appropriately placed humor, with some like questionably placed humor.
All right, Mike, you want to jump on this next?
Yeah, I mean, echoing what they said, I mean, they just handled everything so well, and I was really surprised that we got as much of them in the movie as we did. I thought we weren't going to get as much. I kind of thought. And probably because the trailer, when Doctor Strange says in the trailer, they're coming through and I can't stop them, I just kind of assumed that somewhere around the big third act battle, they were going to show up and be like, whatever. But the fact that logically, they got pulled into our world at the exact same time that the villains did. And they were kind of wandering around and figuring out what to do. Revealing that Ned can use magic, bringing them in, great moment. But most importantly, they meet Tom Holland, not in an action sequence, not in a funny, cute way. They meet him after the worst thing has ever happened to him in his life. So like this entire movie is stacked from a storytelling standpoint around Norman Osborn kills Aunt May.
Yeah.
And we need to get the Toby and Andrew in before that to meet the other two, because they need to show up at this moment in this Peter's life, because he needs them now more than ever. And so like, it's just so emotionally resonant to have them there when he like Tom Holland in that moment. And it is like, as Laura was saying and Shannon was saying, it's a credit to his acting. That Peter Parker is done. Mm-hmm. Like there's no coming back from what he just dealt with. And after watching what Marisa Tomei did, like the whole, like we are in that moment with him. Yeah. And our excitement about seeing all the Spider-Mans come together gets us as an audience out of that horribly tragic moment. Yeah. And it also gets him out of that moment. So it's like, it's just all handled so well, just from the way they structure everything out. And then, like we were saying, like the subtle differences between them, were great, but then the similarities, like as different as they all are, as soon as it was time to science the shit out of some stuff, the three of them went to town. Yeah. And you got to see like, this is who Peter Parker is. And seeing, and even although Shannon doesn't love the Avengers line, all those little moments where we get to see like, oh yeah, our Peter Parker has fought on a team. Mm-hmm. Like he's fought on like the biggest team that there is. And the fact that he kind of can give them that advice as they are kind of giving him advice, like they were all on sort of equal footing because they all had strengths and weaknesses, just as Toby's and Andrew and Tom Holland's Spider-Man are all a little bit different. So I thought they handled that great. I thought the bits about I fought like a guy in a rhino thing. Oh, well, I fought an alien. Oh, I fought an alien too, but he was purple. And I fought him in space. And he's like, so wait, you fought someone in space? I mean, that's just all the nerd stuff that like we like all like those little like referencing everything. Like they did that really great. And then like kind of culminating in Toby getting his Otto Octavius moment. And Andrew getting his I saved the girl who fell moment, which honestly, like that, as much as I was mad that Rocha was right about that moment, as soon as Tom, I mean, I was having, like I said, like the glider knocked Tom Holland out of the way. And I had this brief moment where I was like, fuck, they're going to kill her too. This is the worst movie ever. And then Andrew Garfield comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, all of my competition with Rocha and all of my need to be right went out the window. And I'm like, get her! And then when they landed and he started crying. Yeah. But like when they landed and he started crying. He had that reaction. I was like, get the fuck out of here. This movie is working on a whole other level.
I guess because he's like, are you all right? She's like, yeah. And then he goes, he gets all teary. She goes, are you all right? He's like, yeah, I think I'm good now. It's right. Like everybody gets their closure. Peter Parker, that Tobey Maguire gets the closure with Octavius. Andrew Garfield gets the closure here in this moment with saving MJ. It's fantastic. As soon as Holland was taken out by the thing, I'm like, here he comes. And I've been watching people took, I guess, videos and put them up on YouTube of the reaction in the audience. Man, that reaction's fantastic. I live for every single time I watch it because I had to watch it at a press screening. I've yet to experience it. Even my theater here wasn't that full. I've yet to experience it in a full theater.
Oh, people were going nuts.
I bet it rivaled Endgame when homie caught the hammer. I bet it rivaled all of that, So, Laura, thoughts on Tobey and anything more to add here on Tobey and Andrew Garfield coming through, how they were presented, the journey they went on in the movie with Tom and Solo, and even their little interactions with each other.
Yeah, sure. I'll hit a few points. Shannon actually didn't know that Tobey Maguire injury anecdote. And so when I was watching the back cracking scene, both times I was kind of like, I feel like they could have pretty easily edited this out and it wouldn't have really changed much. And I feel like a different studio maybe would have done that. And I'm glad they didn't, because it was kind of a cute little timeout that they took from all of the action. Is the Avengers a band? I thought, my immediate thought was, is that a Mean Girls reference? Because it worked for me, but I get why it didn't work for some, but that's fine. The three of them not working well together and kind of taking a pause to talk about that and a quick little conference. And then all of a sudden they just are working together perfectly. Felt a little bit rushed to me.
Okay.
That's another just very minor complaint that I have about this, but for the most part, the three of them, I just never would have thought that I would see it. And I think that I had a very sort of similar reaction when I saw Endgame, and that was granted a much larger stage and much grander scale, but these things I just never thought that I would see. And it was so thrilling to get to see it and to get to have them bring in all of those amazing emotional beats, bring in that humor that worked so well, and calling out all of these little meta things from the previous films. I thought was perfect. In terms of the fan reaction, the MJ catch, it was just one of the most satisfying things. I'm sorry to keep bragging about it, Rocha. I didn't realize that you hadn't gotten to experience this yet.
No, I love it. That's why I've been watching the videos. I've been experiencing it viscerally that way. Yeah.
It's so great. And getting to see that moment play out. And I mean, that was I had already been sobbing for most of the movie up to that point, but that one just got me started all over again. The catch was great. I will say that the Tobey Maguire stab at the end, the vocal reaction that happened in my theater, it was both times. It was just people screamed, and I'm just I kind of saw it coming, but still people are reacting so loudly. It was kind of surprising to see that reaction. I was surprised to see that many people reacting, I guess, to that particular Spider-Man having that. I don't know. It was just surprising to me, but I liked it.
I think people didn't know how much they loved these people as Spider-Man until they saw them again. And I think that's that moment. You're right. I mean, that Spider-Man 3 is a subject for ridicule and people talk about it all the time. But those first two Spider-Man, people loved Tobey. People forget, but people loved Tobey as Spider-Man. And Andrew Garfield, that first movie, a lot of people loved Andrew kind of showing up at Comic-Con dressed as Spider-Man. We lived for the fact that he was legitimately wide open with his love of Spider-Man. And you can watch that recent video of his love for Cobra Kai and see that guy is authentically a very open, vulnerable, sensitive guy who loves these things that he loves, and he loves them bone deep. And so we kind of connected with that. But then Amazing Spider-Man 2 happened. It didn't quite work out. But seeing them again to kind of come back into the movie and do what they were doing, I mean, I was happy as shit. And I screamed in my press screening when he got stabbed. I did. And when Otto, I did. And then when Otto and Peter had that moment, I clapped. I was like this. I was like, damn right, I did that because I didn't care, because I'm going to enjoy this fucking movie. I don't give a shit. I'm not supposed to do the press screening. I'm going to enjoy this movie. And so it was great to see that. And I didn't even know I missed Andrew as Spider-Man until I saw him, or Tobey as Spider-Man until I saw them, and the different ways that they played their Peter Parkers, their Spider-Man. Those interactions in the lab were just fantastic. I mean, him going wait, how do you shoot webs out of the fascination they both had about how he's able to shoot out of his skin. I mean, that was just brilliant. So
have you ever had a web block? Yeah, I ran out of canisters. Oh yeah, mine was existential crisis.
all of that was just genius, and so much of them working together. And then at the end, but I liked it. I liked the Avengers more. I didn't have a problem with that like Shannon did. And I liked it that they figured it out. Hey, we don't, because that's what happens in a comic book. And that's the number one thing that I love about this movie. This is the most faithful Spider-Man to a Spider-Man comic book movie that I've ever seen. It feels like a Spider-Man comic book movie, even though it's a live action movie. It feels so true to what you enjoyed about Spider-Man, that he's intelligent. They can figure this out quicker than usual and all of that. And so to me, it worked, but I understand if some people had hesitation on it, but I enjoyed the shit out of it. So Mike, I'm sorry.
But I think also like, it's really like, this is like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I think maybe Warner Brothers with their Batman movies are the only people positioned to do this, because like you were
and
saying,
they will.
We'll see if they pull it off. Into the Spider-Verse, the animated version, they introduced us to Miles Morales, and when the older Peter Parker came in, we sort of had a sense like we know MJ, we know what he lived, but then when like Spider-Ham and Spider Noir and all them come in, like these aren't characters that we know that we've lived with, so we get a little bit of their origin, we get that they are the Spider-Men and women of their worlds, but we're sort of along for the ride and meeting them for the first time. The fact that we got to see two Spider-Men who we have seen in movies, and we know their history, and we get to see these villains who we know their history, and we get to see all of this unfold. Like, who the fuck ever has the opportunity to do that? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. We're gonna jump into the post-credit scenes here in just a second, but we've got to get through all these Streamlabs. A lot of people sent stuff in, so let's burn through these as quickly as we can. Let's keep the answers kind of short but to the point. Carol says, I think the best scene was when all three Spideys meet for the first time and have that conversation on the rooftop. Also, the Norman to Green Goblin switch scene in Happy's apartment was right up there with the Vulture reveal scene from Homecoming. Oh, interesting. The rear view mirror shot. Would you guys agree?
Spider-Man walking around that room with his spider sense going crazy and not knowing what to do, and then just like whipping that thing, and Willem Dafoe just being like, that's a cool like I was like, whoa, it might not be quite as good as the Vulture reveal, but it's definitely up there.
Agree. Like I thought it was awesome, but that Vulture reveal on the back of the Michael Keaton reveal, like the boom boom, like I don't think it quite hit that, but it was still really good though.
Yeah. What'd you think, Laura?
I have like only a very vague memory of what happened in Homecoming with Vulture, so I don't have nothing to go off of for that. But yeah, I think in terms of like one of the best scenes being, the three Spidey meeting on the roof. I thought I totally agree. It was perfect and just really, really well executed, well paced. It just landed every moment of it.
Absolutely. 00 Biggie says, hey, Geek Buddies, it is crazy that the MCU went from 6 movies in 4 years to 22 movies and TV shows in 2 years. So glad Feige and Pascal are working on Spider-Man 4. I feel the Miles Morales tease was the most heavily teased for the future of Spider-Man. Yeah, they did make a Miles Morales reference in this one. Jamie Foxx being the one who got to reveal it, of course, as a black actor, mentioning that, kind of alluding to the fact there could be a black Spider-Man or something like that. I thought you were black under that costume, so it was brilliant.
And Andrew's, I'm sorry.
Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker is just like sad and apologizing about his life. He's like, guys, I haven't fought an alien. Oh, this guy is black. I feel bad. Like, I don't. Oh man. Like,
Jacob Riley says, "Oh my God, it didn't hit me till you said it." MJ tells Dr. Frickin' Strange to use magic words. LOL. Yeah, something I said earlier. Also, I didn't like changing crap to shit. I think crap worked better for the Doctor Strange they've got. Otherwise, this freaking movie blew me away. Well, yeah, he did cuss a couple times. Yeah.
I'm on the exact opposite. I thought it sounded the trailer I thought sounded ridiculous saying crap. I'm like, he's definitely saying shit in the movie. Like, there's no way that they're saying it didn't sound right to me. I don't know why.
Wow, I agree. Thoughts on the crap versus shit, boys? Any thoughts on that?
I was surprised.
I'm always gonna go with shit.
Okay, fair.
I mean,
shit was a payoff.
Of the ladder of bad words that I'm okay with. Shit. Right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, fair enough. Cooley High says, hello, my friends. No Way Home was fantastic. I am super curious to see where Spidey goes now. I feel like he is truly Spider-Man now. No Stark Tech, his own suit, Also, without the good influence of Peter, does Ned eventually become Hobgoblin? Be easy. Yeah, Cooley, I was thinking the same thing, especially when that, as you guys mentioned earlier, that Ned reveal of him finding out like what happened to Peter Parker's best friend and him saying, I would never do that to you. I thought they were setting up Hobgoblin in this movie, possibly, but I didn't see how they could do it. And then they didn't, but erasing his memory, there's possibilities where Jacob Batalon becomes now Peter's villain. I don't know. What do you guys think? Peter's Green Goblin could be Ned.
I don't see that, but I did tell Vogel after the end of the movie, I'm like, I half expected Ned and MJ to kiss.
Oh yeah, at the end, ditto,
Yeah.
Absolutely ditto. What do you think, Mike or Laura? Do you think Ned becomes Hobgoblin in in this new trilogy?
I mean, Ned Leeds becomes Hobgoblin in the comics, but Ned Leeds in the comics is not anything like Ned. Like I said, like Ned as Peter Parker's best friend and man in the chair is a non-existent thing that is on. So like kind of saying, well, he has the same name as this person that became Hobgoblin. I'm like, I don't know that that's the road they're going to go down. I'm way more interested in the fact that he has a burgeoning ability to go become a sorcerer. Like I'm way more interested in Ned, Wong, and Doctor Strange training in the Sanctum Sanctorum than I am with Ned deciding that he's going to kill Peter Parker. So we'll see. I do think they have a lot of, and again, this is what I mean, where they drop the hints. Like, so we've seen Ned use magic. We've had him say, oh, Peter, I'll never kill you, in that really funny moment. So now, 3 or 4 movies from now, whether Ned becomes the Sorcerer Supreme or whether Ned becomes Hobgoblin, we will all go, ugh, they planned it all along. But like, cause they're really good at leaving. Well, remember, they said that in the movie. They knew what they were going to do. I'm like, well, they said a couple things and they could have gone in either direction.
Laura, any thoughts on that? Do you think they turned Jacob Batalon into a villain?
No, my answer's short and sweet. No, I don't think they will. But I do think that their only chance that something like that could even be presented, I mean, would be something to do with like Ned's family. If Peter had anything to do for whatever reason at some point in the future with like, maybe that's something, but I'm in the same group. I'm way more interested in continuing on the magic train with Ned.
Yeah, we shall see. Jacob Riley says $10 says he is defending Happy/Stark Industries in Armor Wars. That sequence with the tractor trailer and Murdoch scene dialogue felt like laying groundwork for Armored Wars, and by extension, later Ironheart. Definitely pumped to see him in She-Hulk. I think he's talking about Matt Murdock. You guys, same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like I said this before, I think it is I'll put it at a 95% chance that we're seeing Matt Murdock in She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way they're not going to do that. And wherever else we're going to see him, I don't know that we'll see Daredevil in She-Hulk. There's maybe a better chance of that. But I do think we will definitely see Matt Murdock. And, I mean, to Laura's point, I am very excited to see a Daredevil on the big screen and have it be Charlie Cox. So I hope we get that as well.
I think he becomes the Tony Stark of the ground-based heroes, showing up in all their movies, just like Tony does. I think that's a possibility. Fredtastic314 says, hey guys and Laura, this was an outstanding movie and entertaining as hell. To me, this was the Matt Murdock end credit scene, but in the beginning. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. I like that.
It did feel like that. It did feel like it had that feel of like an amazing end credit scene. We were like, holy shit, that's who it is. It was just in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially the brick catch. Doug Developer says, oh my God, never thought it could ever be done, but the audience's reaction of Toby walking in was even louder than when Cap wielded the hammer. It was like a rock concert in my theater, and it was awesome. How was it like in your theaters? Yeah.
Well, Rocha did not have that.
I did not know. Although, I will say this. The press screening was 20 people. They clapped when Toby showed up, but it wasn't, of course, a full theater. So what was it like for you all?
We had a pretty rowdy theater. People were real excited.
Okay. Yeah, and the great thing about knowing when the surprises are coming is slowly looking back at the rest of the theater and watching everyone react to the stuff on the screen.
I think my favorite was the Andrew Garfield. Like the Tobey Maguire was just like this like just uproarious applause, but the Andrew Garfield, it was that slow thing. Like Shannon said, like if you're a super nerd, Ned opens the thing and you see you see a Spider-Man going down the way, and half the audience was like, okay, they found Peter Parker, and the other half was like, wait a minute, and then he turns around and you see those big eyes, and like another third of the audience went, oh, cool. But then it's like there was still like a part of the audience that didn't really know until he took the thing off, and so like it was like a. Like,
I was in group number 3 for that. I feel like my theater, every single person in my theater, I must have been like surrounded by super nerds, because as soon as like you saw even just the slight glimpse of him, as dark as that scene was, everybody knew it was him. And I was just like, oh, we all, okay, got it. You all know, I just don't know. And that's fine. But I feel like my theaters, we had a much louder reaction to Andrew, I think, than Toby. I think at that point, everybody was just like, yeah, we know what's coming.
Right. Nice. Okay. Mez says, hey guys, much love to Mike in Kingpinville. Shout out to John on Hayward Island, and peace to Shannon in Dark Tour Strangeland. Love the show and listening in live. You guys made this MCU year of 2021 fly by after a barren 2020. Keep it up and all the best. Oh, thank you. Very kind. Joshua Canovas says, to clarify, I fly for free working at American Airlines. So probably the only reason I did fly, I also surprised my friends. My friend said I was the best cameo of the night.
Oh.
in a night of big cameos, that's a big compliment.
That is I'd like to be friends with your friends, because my friend apparently wasn't too thrilled that I was coming up.
I was thrilled you were coming up.
Nope.
I only found out after the.
It's too late now. Yeah,
here we go.
Chance. Mez also says, on the title of Sorcerer Supreme, it was never explicitly mentioned that Strange becomes that at any point. It was just assumed that it was passed down after the Ancient One died. Strange always just introduced himself as the master of the mystic arts. Yes?
Yeah, I don't think he's ever... I mean, the only the Sorcerer Supreme that's ever been referenced was the Ancient One, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever said that about Strange, so...
Right. But that's been the big conversation. Is he the Sorcerer Supreme? Is he not the Sorcerer Supreme? And clearly that was clarified here that it is Wong. So, Geeky Gal says, love you guys and happy holidays. One of the most relatable themes was the trio's path towards post-high school. Okay. I think, trio's path post-high school. That excitement of the future blends with the fear of what's to come. Paths and friends change, and that's hard and was felt throughout. Yes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's what they did really. I mean, I think the whole MIT storyline was really great. I was talking to somebody who thought that it slowed the movie down, but I really liked it because of that. I think part of what makes Spider-Man work is that there's always sort of that real world stuff going on while all the crazy stuff is happening. And the fact that a lot of his struggles and a lot of his stress was around not only him not getting into the schools that he wanted, but his friends not getting into the schools because of him. So it's like it took that real world emotion that you're talking about that everyone feels and kind of like up-leveled it.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, let's see. What's the next one here? Sorry about that. Let me bring it up. I went to go grab another one. Okay, just finish. Oh, okay. Love you guys. Does everyone? Review King MB says, does everyone in Toby and Andrew's universe forget about them too?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question, because all the other people were coming in from those other universes because they knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
don't know either.
That is a good
I
question.
have a lot of questions about the logistics of the spell. There's
so the logistics of the spell at the beginning seem pretty clear and make sense to me. The logistics of the spell at the end, as my little brother continually pointed out in the theater as the movie was over, it gets a little shady, and I'm not quite sure how it works and why it went that way. So I understand kind of from a bigger MCU sense, they wanted to get him where they got him. And I think we're all really happy where he ended up. Yeah. But the exact, like, why did we have to do it this way and what's going on and why is everybody coming through and how does this make them not come through is a little bit shady.
That's fair. Genghis Khani. I love this name. Just finished my third viewing and I'm still an emotional wreck. Always love seeing Laura with the Geek Buddies, especially talking Marvel. Do you think Peter will keep his promise and fix things for Ned and MJ?
I think he kind of feels...
Fix things in that getting them into college? I mean, that part's done.
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like... because when he goes into the diner, they've clearly been accepted.
Yes.
I think that where we'll pick up with him is, even if he could break the spell, he may not want to, because I think he kind of feels like their life is better without him. I mean, in addition to the MIT thing, you can see that he went in there doing what half of the people on Twitter are saying that he should do, which is all right, just go in and introduce yourself and be like, hey, my name's Peter Parker. This is going to sound crazy, but which is clearly what he was intending to do.
Yeah.
But then he saw that Band-Aid on MJ's head, and it reminded him that, like, when they're around him, they get hurt.
Right.
And I think he thinks he's keeping his promise by not being around them.
Yeah. Do we not see Zendaya or Jacob in the? I don't know. I wonder.
Oh, I think they're coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Fred
they'll
Test-
come back, but I think it's like part of the reason why I wonder how dark it's going to go, because I think when you take that superhero that worries about getting their friends hurt and you take them on a dark path where they have to be alone. We saw Matt Murdock go through it in Daredevil.
Yeah,
it's like it's going to end up being a darker path without them. But I do think that we will probably see maybe less of them in the next one.
Possibly.
Or, I mean, look, if I could have my druthers and do it the way I wanted to do it, like what you do is you spend a whole movie with him not having anyone, and he's at Empire University or wherever he goes, and he meets Gwen Stacy. And Gwen Stacy's amazing and gets him and is very different than Zendaya's MJ. And they have this great relationship and things are going pretty well. And then something happens and the spell breaks and then MJ comes back and then you're in the fuck do I do now? Like if you like kind of building that triangle of Peter, MJ, and Gwen in the way it was in the comics for a bit and kind of like playing that beat could be really interesting.
But he knows about Gwen Stacy with the other Peter Parker, right? So
he knows there was a Gwen Stacy, yeah, but like just like they know that now there's more than one MJ. Like I think that, you know.
Okay. Fred Tastic 314 says, if Tony Stark set aside a grant for Peter Parker to go to MIT before he passed, does it still exist? I hope so. No.
Nope.
Does not exist.
Magic, that's not how magic. I don't know. I mean, like somebody said in the chat, like don't question magic too much. But as I was saying to my brother, like magic doesn't work in everything is like, well, we wipe the slate clean and it's done. It's like like anytime you try and break the spell, it's like WandaVision. Like anytime somebody tries to break the spell, the magic sort of adjusted for it in real time. So if Tony Stark left a grant for Peter Parker, that money is now probably just magically earmarked somewhere else.
Yeah.
Jim Rash's charges with hot dogs.
Real Adam Driver 69 says, hi, new fan here. Thanks for coming aboard. Would you rather see Ned in future films become Sorcerer Supreme or Hobgoblin? Good question.
My money's on Sorcerer Supreme.
I like magic. I like magic, Ned.
Yeah, the magic train. Let's stay on it.
Ned floating down in the levitation cloak was a pretty great visual.
I know that was kind of cool. He's like, thanks, Mr. Cloak. Didn't he say that? Which I thought was really cool. Atlas of the Moon just donated. Thank you, Atlas. Very kind of you for sure. Austin Petrie says, another rumor is Evil Cap cameo in Doctor Strange 2. I think people are just throwing shit out. I don't know if there's an Evil Cap cameo. Dano Zambrano says, now Peter gets to choose which heroes know his real name now, something they can use for cool storytelling down the line. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there was years in the comics where Spider-Man fought on the Avengers and didn't tell anyone who he was. Like Peter Parker keeping his identity a secret more so than others was like a super, super important thing to him. So I think now we'll probably get to play some of that where Peter Parker maybe is going to team up with people who he did team up with in the past and is going to be very much more guarded about who he is. So it'll be interesting to see how much they play that.
Okay. All right. Let's see what else I've got here. Vegetable Tube says, I enjoyed seeing Peter's spider sense animated in astral form.
Yeah. The whole moment where he got like knocked out of his body and his body was still reacting and then he was able to sort of go back into like the fact that like his spidey sense and his like body's ability to do whatever like is a counter to the whole like, you know, Tilda Swinton like boom, like was really, really cool to me.
Yeah. Am I coming in as an echo right now?
No.
Okay.
No.
Weird. I'm in here twice. So I'm going to.
Oh, there he goes.
Oh, boy.
He's back.
John got blipped.
Yeah. I don't know what to do here. So, all right.
Yeah. Oh.
Ah!
Now it's happening.
God.
What if I did that and I was wearing a completely different outfit? What if I did that? That would be awesome.
The Geek Buddies multiverse of madness.
Now I don't know what to do, so let's just keep playing. All right, let's move on. I don't know what happened. Let's see. Vegetable Tube says, I would love to see Amy Pascal as a character or play herself in a Spider-Man movie.
That'd be hilarious. I'm 100% down for that.
I mean, that new hairstyle, she looks a little bit like a
Oh boy,
possibly. Yeah, let's see. Let's Madison J. How do you all feel about the mind wipe trope?
I think that's kind of what we're talking about with the spell, which is mind wipe tropes are dangerous because logically it just opens up a bunch of questions. Like, what exactly do people remember? Like, obviously they remember that they went to fight Thanos with Spider-Man, but they don't remember that it was Peter Parker. Like, so do they just remember that he was wearing a mask? Like, mind wipe tropes are kind of sticky and like there's a lot of logic flaws. But I think particularly in this movie, the emotional payoff outweighs the logic holes. So I'm going to give it to him for this one because I think emotionally where Peter ends up and where he gets to go from that is worth it.
Okay.
There was a series that Vogel and I worked on a little while ago where they had discussed doing a mind wipe trope for season 2. And the writers came back like, okay, well, this is what would happen. And you get this laundry list of inconvenient plot lines. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, we're not. Never mind. We don't want to do that.
All right, I figured it out. I'm good now. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, thank goodness.
No shit. GRMEATXT. I don't know what that means. Spider-Man's choice to save the villains and send them back, presumably at the time of their death, changes the timelines, or it is more cruel because they are still sent to die but now cured. Discuss. Ooh.
No, because those confrontations don't happen.
Okay.
I mean,
I was also confused about all of this, so I don't know.
I mean,
this also bothered me. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, it's like, again, we don't get the details on this, but presumably, I mean, like Otto Octavius dies because of this big thing that happens. I don't think he goes back right in the moment where he was dying, but now he's cured, so he has to face his death. Like, he and Toby have kind of made peace. Like, if they get, even though Toby's older, so he's going back to his time, like, one would presume that now that these guys don't have their afflictions, they will come back into a situation and go, whoa, stop.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then you're like, cool, I guess we're good here. Like, so I think that the intention is, you have to go back to your world. I mean, that's what's going to happen, but I'm going to put you in a position where you are, and again, most of not all, but like a lot of Spider-Man's villains, are more tragic. I mean, it's like Batman's villains. It's like, look, if you fix Mr. Freeze's issue with his wife and you save Nora Freeze, Mr. Freeze is not going to kill people anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's what, so the fact that these Spider-Men went out of their way to do it is, like I said earlier, the most Spider-Man thing that you can do. And again, the logic and the specifics, I think, matter less than the emotional intention of like, they literally gave all of them a second chance.
That's fair. Red Dozen says, Empire State with a scholarship from the Future Foundation?
Oh, maybe. It would be interesting to see. I mean, again, don't know where the Fantastic Four is coming into all this. Like, I don't know where we're gonna. So many potential things they could do.
It's true. It's true. Vincent Zawada says, loved the movie Garfield talking about Gwen fave. Okay. Fair enough.
It's amazing because for the fact that, I mean, and maybe some people disagree with this. Like, I thought, we all know that we all know what happens to Gwen Stacy. I thought they did it so poorly in that movie. I think that movie is pretty horrible. Oof. So I thought it was sort of a not great moment in the movie and a wasted moment for something that is so essential in the comic books. But I feel like Andrew Garfield brought the heat in this movie talking about it. So it's like, I felt more emotionally invested in it. It's kind of how I feel about the Star Wars prequel trilogy, where like some stuff, the execution of like Anakin and Padme falling in love, not great, but I now accept it as a thing that happened. I feel like the Gwen Peter moment in this movie is now how I feel. I'm like, well, I don't think the execution is great, but I accept the emotional impact to the characters.
True. Anybody else chiming in on this? No? Okay.
Nah.
Good. All right. Dylan Curtis says, Rocha, holy crap, I am so stoked. I haven't seen you since Collider days. What? The channel's been up for 2 years. Anyway, miss your content and subscribing now. How do you all feel about Venom? And so, let's jump into this. It's a nice segue. Michael Vogel's favorite post-credit scene ever, maybe, is Tom Hardy being blipped out, but a little Venom being left for everybody else. Michael, you were so upset about that being a possibility. Now that he's gone, are you happier?
The emotional roller coaster that I had watching this uncredited sequence. Like the fact that we cut to Tom Hardy in a bar asking questions about the MCU, I was like, oh fuck, he's here? He's here now? We're doing this? Is this happening? And he was asking all the questions and asking all the questions. And then Venom was like, let's go eat people. Rah, 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 rah. And then like when he disappeared, I was like, okay, thank God. That was just a funny little blip, whatever. And then when they left that little bit of the symbiote, I was like, oh, this is a Marvel masterstroke. They're like, look, we're going to give you your end credit sequence in Venom 2. It'll lead into Spider-Man. It's going to be great. We will give you a little Tom Hardy moment, but then we're giving you back Tom Hardy. That's on you. Y'all do. I know it makes you a bunch of money. Yeah. I know people think it's fun. I know people think it's the best gay relationship that's ever been on cinema, Tom Hardy and the symbiote. Oof. But like, you all can keep that, but we're going to keep this little bit of the symbiote and we're going to do our own thing and we're going to make it better. I was like,
yep. For all the fans that went crazy and still try to tell me that movie's a good movie, knock yourselves out. Go ahead. Love what you love. But that was Feige saying, no effing way is that my MCU. So I don't think there's any other way you can take that.
God.
What did you guys think about that end credit scene?
I mean, yeah, like as the credits were rolling, Vogel leaned over and was just like, hey, in one movie, they fixed Green Goblin. And I was like, yeah, they did. And at the end of that post-credit scene, I leaned over and was like, hey, they just fixed Venom too. I'll be curious to see who the symbiote latches onto.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be Tom Hardy of the MCU. I think they probably
Danny
will go
Rojas.
He was the only part I liked about that was that Danny Rojas.
The joy from seeing Danny Rojas on screen. Yes, Ted Lasso's made it into the MCU.
The MCU
Danny Rojas. If Danny Rojas gets that symbiote suit.
Oh my God, please. That would be awesome.
Venom is life.
Venom is life. Right Now and Later says, it wasn't until Spider-Man No Way Home that I realized Ned Leeds is the Hobgoblin in the comics. Do you think, given the situation of no one remembering Peter, that Ned could become the Hobgoblin? Right now, I think we addressed that. So, but I did want to give you credit for putting putting it up on the screen, brother. So let's see if we've got another one that's come through. The Mind White trope we discussed. This is from Aaron Carranza. Andrew Garfield was fantastic in No Way Home, and Willem Dafoe was outstanding. Absolutely.
100%. Absolutely.
Simon Section says, I just got back from my second viewing of No Way Home, this time on IMAX. It was like being in church. Woo! A Norman Osborn in the MCU. I'm calling for Tom Cruise since he was the original choice to play Iron Man. I mean, I like it, but I'm scared of it.
It'll be.
What do you say, Mike?
Well, I'm just curious. It is interesting because given what they did, I mean, I don't know that seeing Tom Holland fight a new Green Goblin or a new Doc Ock, it's almost like he's got the Cliff's Notes now. You meet a guy named Dr. Otto Octavius, you're like, all right, brother, listen, you need to stay away from tentacles. And you meet a Norman Osborn and you're like, I do not trust you no matter what. Like, so they've sort of like, I'm trying to think just through Spider-Man sort of like, Kraven the Hunt. Like there's a handful of villains you could still go to, but it'll be curious if they are going to do another full trilogy. Yeah. How much of it is going to be Peter Parker? How much of it is going to lean into Miles Morales? So are we going to get the Prowler? Like, it'll be interesting to see who the villains are that they bring in because they've already used so much.
Yeah. Fair point.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like Tom Cruise in a property that's not Tom Cruise centric, like The Mummy. I'm like, I don't know if that mix works. The only time I've heard a good idea was if they were going to do a Green Lantern Corps with an older Hal and a younger John, is like Tom Cruise as an older Hal. I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. But him as Norman, I don't necessarily see that.
I like him as Spider-Man Rain. Laura, thoughts? Tom Cruise.
I reject Tom Cruise in all things.
Wow. There it is. There it is. Laura's not feeling the need for speed right now.
Not at all. No, quite the opposite. Stephen Ross says, I genuinely thought the post-credit scene was going to be Andrew Garfield meeting Shailene Woodley. Oh, that would have been nice. For those you don't know, she was going to be MJ in the next movie for Amazing Spider-Man. So that would have been interesting for sure. Although, given recent comments, never mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to keep our distance, I think, from her.
Yeah, maybe we're like, maybe not. J Meister 25, wild theory, but there may be some connection to the blood the hand used to fuel Elektra's pod to keep her alive to further feed Tiamat. Maybe not. What? Someone explain that.
Tiamat is he's the celestial that they killed, the Eternals killed.
Right.
And I think it's two universes that are probably not going to be. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I just hope. I mean, I don't even know what we're gonna get as far as Elektra goes. Like, I'm really curious and we talked about this on the main show, but how much of the Netflix series count as canon now that the few characters that have shown up, and are we gonna get the same actress as Elektra? Are we gonna get a new Elektra? I'll be really curious to see how they handle all of it.
Agreed. All right.
It will take a delicate hand.
Oh, Jesus, you had to. Andrew McGregor, one small beat that I love was when Happy sees Peter over Aunt May. He's in pain for losing his love. He's in pain for Peter and still protects him, telling him his favorite quote, cool youth pastor. Okay. Yes. I don't know.
I thought the moment was great. Especially considering the journey of Happy and Peter's relationship, watching him scream out, run, Peter. Oh,
yeah. That was great. I mean, poor Happy.
Yeah.
Poor Happy.
I mean, for God's sakes. Hey, gang. Hey, Haskell. Good to see you, bud. Says, hey, gang. So when Strange, Fury, etc. think back on the events of Infinity War and Endgame, they'll remember Spider-Man helped them. Just that Spider-Man is not Peter, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like my brother's question was, what does Happy think? Like when you're like, hey, Happy, didn't you give Spider-Man the suit? And he did. And he'd be like, yeah. And be like, well, then who was he? And I think the way magic works, he'd be like, I think I just left it at the door. I think in the same thing, Endgame, everyone would be like, yeah, of course Spider-Man helped us. Like, we couldn't have stopped Thanos without Spider-Man. Right. Well, who is he? Well, I don't know. He never tells us.
Yeah, it's true. I like this question. Carol T. Other than Rhino, I was trying to figure out who was trying to come through. Was that Kraven? I thought that was Kraven with the spear.
This was actually going to be my question. I wanted to know the purple stuff, lightning. Were we supposed to know who was there like a known rogues gallery number of people that were coming through that were identifiable to anyone, or was
Rhino definitely was the standout.
Rhino was featured. I thought I saw a Scorpion. I thought I saw a big tail.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Who did you see, Mike? You see the same things?
Yeah, I definitely Scorpion. I think I saw Scorpion, or Shannon told me afterwards he saw Scorpion, and I believe it is myself. My brother is literally texting me Scorpion as we are talking. I think maybe a Kraven.
Thanks for watching, Daniel.
So I think there was like more. I think there was lots of Easter eggs in there, but I would have to go back and rewatch it and like pause it to really get a sense of it. So I think there was a lot of Easter eggs in there for sure.
There were. A better day, but I'm trying to run through all these so we can all kind of end this eventually. I can't accept Spider-Man defeating Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension with geometry. I know he needed to for the story, but I felt too easy for the good doctor to be disabled like that.
Doctor Strange is arrogant.
Yes.
I love Doctor Strange, and he's very good at magic, but he's arrogant. And I think he put Peter in that mirror dimension, and he was like, I've got this. And Peter is a nerd.
And I wouldn't say like Peter technically won, but what Peter did was tie him up for enough for him to escape.
Essentially, yeah. Tie him up long enough. He essentially webbed him in the mirror dimension. That's what he essentially did until it wore off. I've been hanging over the Grand Canyon for 12 hours. Did we like Doctor Strange in the movie? You know, people have been complaining that these Spider-Man movies, they're always attaching him to Stark or attaching him to someone else and not letting him stand on his own. They kind of did that again in this movie, but I thought this was the most I'm standing on my own Peter Parker movie we've seen in the Tom Holland trilogy. Did you guys like Doctor Strange within this? Yeah.
I did. I love the trilogy of supporting characters they've had. Because that's what they are. They are supporting Spider-Man's story.
Right. Laura?
I thought it worked, and I haven't been a huge fan of Doctor Strange, really, in a lot of his appearances. The first movie, for some reason, I still just haven't been able to really get through it. I keep falling asleep. But the mirror dimension thing, at least for me, and I wanted to mention, I accidentally saw this movie in 3D the first time. We were all so frantic to buy tickets for opening night. I didn't realize what I did. It did not add anything except the mirror dimension was pretty freaking cool in 3D. Okay. That was one part that I actually kind of enjoyed. But I think that I like having him in there because I really like that emotional, reaction we get at the very end, where you kind of see Doctor Strange like tearing up, where he's like, the people who know you and care about you won't remember you. And I was like, oh my God, is that emotion? Like, look at this guy. I appreciated it.
Just like Lorgan. Why are you giving me glasses? What the fuck?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. I was so mad. Masks in glasses, it doesn't work. Why are we even doing this? It doesn't work. I hate it.
I have to ride my mask almost all the way to the bridge of my nose. I need Tom Holland to meet Black Cat soon, says Gage. Oh, maybe.
I actually like that as a story point before meeting Gwen Stacy. I think him meeting Black Cat is actually would be cool, seeing sort of someone with a darker edge.
Felicia Kyle, right? Is that correct? Am I wrong on the word?
Hardy. Felicia Hardy.
Selena Kyle. I'm getting mixed up. It's late, ladies and gentlemen. Cooley High. Both cats, exactly. Vogel, big facts. I thought the same thing like Sony. Keep your Venom and Tom Hardy. MCU Venom is going to be great. Also, Secret Wars is next.
Ooh, so, yes.
It's going to be hairy. Oh, PJ says, I'm basically just here to wish you all on screen a happy holidays. Much love to a bunch of my favorite people. You guys rock. Happy holidays, friends.
Thank you, PJ.
Hi, PJ.
Same to you, PJ. Much love, my man. Much love to you, brother. Cooley High. We need Madam Web. Helen Mirren, perhaps? Also, who would you cast as Morales? Ooh, that's a tough question.
Madam Web would be really interesting.
There were rumors that Madam Web was on the horizon. So
interesting.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Helen Mirren in anything is great.
Sure.
Miles, I think when they get to him, complete unknown. It'll be somebody that we don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. G. Smith says, entertaining as always. Many thanks. Thank you, G. Smith. Doug Developer says, picky nits. I'm sorry, but we all know the moment you realize you got accepted into college is when you receive a fat envelope. So technically, them opening up their letters don't really work. Shrug. Laura?
Yeah. I had the same thought, but I also, like, in my notes, I wrote down, I might be dating myself by saying this because I would imagine it's all electronic now. Is it not all done via email? I don't know, but I remember I thought the same thing. I was like, small envelope means you didn't get in. We know that big envelope means acceptance.
Let's see here. Mick says, hi, buddies. How pleased are you that Tom Hardy's Venom was in and out so quickly? And also, do you think it's Marvel's way of saying, we don't want that Venom, we are going to do it right?
I mean, literally, I think that's exactly what we just said. So yes, 100%. Like,
100%.
Hey, really nice to have you here. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Also, sorry about the result today, John. How did Kane stay on? Mick, yeah, I agree. Man, what a fucking ridiculous decision that was. Let's see. Liz. Hey, Liz. I hated that Peter didn't tell MJ at the diner when he explicitly promised her he would. It's so condescending to assume he knows better than her what is best, and telling he noticed the Band-Aid but not her broken Black Dahlia necklace.
Was she wearing the broken Black Dahlia necklace?
She was.
She was.
Oh God, guys, I didn't know that, and now I'm like having emotions all over again. I mean, look, I think that yes, I don't know that I would say condescending so much as I would say that I think from a relationship standpoint, when we really care about somebody, I think we always are down on ourselves more than we should be. And I think that, and this is not him thinking he knows what's best for her, except he's letting his fear of the fact that he feels like he's not the best thing for her outweigh him. Like, we know that she'd be happier with him. We know that she's down for the adventure and that she is an adult human who can make her own choices and do whatever. But I think he's just feeling like all I've ever done since I've been in her life is like almost get her killed like 12 times.
Yeah. I like this one. I know it's not a donation, but I like this. Selena Gomez is Black Cat. I'd be down with that.
Interesting.
I loved her in Only Murders in the Building. So that's the first time I ever seen her act. And I thought she was great in that. I don't watch Disney show.
Same, actually.
Let's see. I think we're almost at the end here. Fantastic says, Sony/Marvel kills it again with that end song. It will be on repeat when I can get it. What do you mean? 3 is the magic number? So that's De La Soul. That's been around since the 80s. You can get it on anywhere. What are you talking about?
They do choose really, really good songs for their closing credits.
Yes, they do. let's talk about let's talk about that final end credit scene, which was a trailer for the Multiverse of Madness as a wrap up here of this review. Any thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that situation?
So excited.
My brain exploded.
I watched it in the screening at the press, and I said to myself, people are gonna lose their fucking mind that it's a trailer at the end of the fucking movie.
They did do that in Captain America.
Yes, right.
Like Captain America, the end credit sequence was just basically the trailer for Avengers, but they haven't done it since then. I don't think. It was great. I mean, I'm just so curious. I mean, it kind of falls under the same category as Spider-Man No Way Home in that with everything that sounds like it's going to be in that movie, how are they going to pull it all off? I think what I really did enjoy about it, and they do a good job of this, is like I was worried that with the Scarlet Witch of it all and the multiverse of it all, that they were going to kind of lose the thread of the first Doctor Strange movie, aka Laura's favorite Marvel movie. And I thought that like the whole like Baron Mordo sort of like being the villain and teeing him up to do whatever, but he's clearly there and he's clearly like integral to what's going on here. So I thought that was great. I love seeing a little quick glimpse of America Chavez. I think like most people in the world, Wanda is the thing that I'm most excited about this movie because I just need more Wanda in my life.
I love how she was like, don't even bring that shit here. I know I did some wrong. What do you want to talk about? I love that. Yeah. Shannon?
Thought it was super cool. Love Chiwetel Ejiofor's new look. I thought he looked awesome.
Yeah.
And I love that Dark Door Strange is making it into live action.
Jesus Christ.
I was excited when I saw him. I was like, oh, they really are going to do it. Everybody thought they were going to do it in this movie, but they really are going to do it down the road with Multiverse of Madness. It's brilliant. Laura, any thoughts on that trailer showing up right at the end of the movie?
I'm very intrigued at the idea of bringing anything from What If potentially into live action. So I'm excited to see it play out. Excited to see Wanda come back. Again, I am a greedy fan. And I really was hoping for a Loki or Sylvie appearance, and I didn't get either, so I was a little bit annoyed. But for the most, I need to go back and watch the first Doctor Strange movie because I need that background. I think, but yeah, I was pretty indifferent to the post credits scenes. Actually.
Laura breaks my heart. Doctor Strange is in my top 10. Laura, you break my heart. That film is so good.
The Tom Hardy one for sure. I was just like kind of pleased that it ended where it ended. And the Doctor Strange 2, like I think I was really excited that we got so much footage from Doctor Strange 2 and we got to see so much of what it was going to be. Yeah. But I do agree it didn't have like I really am, and I think like they did it because this is the end of this trilogy. Like I don't think they know what's happening with this now. I don't know that they know that they've got Tom Holland locked in for more movies. I don't know that they know. So I think they couldn't really do full Spider-Man post-credit sequences because I think they don't really know.
That's fair. PJ sent in a Streamlab as well, basically saying the same thing, but he also said, I hope you guys have a great holiday season. Oh, and happy to have #justice for Andrew Garfield. So PJ loves Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. So yeah, absolutely. Jonathan Hale says, I love this movie, love seeing Toby and Andrew, but I don't feel like there's a need for more of them. I think they serve their purposes as the mentors, and the movie also tied up any loose ends in their respective series. What do you think?
I think they've definitely. I think Tobey Maguire, that's true, but I think the reason you're seeing, I think I said this earlier, but the reason you're seeing so much Andrew Garfield love is because they clearly have created a character for him that is not complete yet. We want him to find love. We want him to feel like a more complete Spider-Man. So it's like they've sort of left that door open, I feel like.
Yeah, fair enough. Simon Section says, after seeing Shuma-Gorath and Dark Door Strange in the last post-credit trailer, are we certain we might see a live-action Captain Carter? If not, I'm glad I saw Miss America represent. So, yeah, I hope so. For the love of God, please, if we're going to start like repairing things or been repairing things, please give me Haley Atwell back again. Fuck, man. I want to see her on screen live action in the MCU already, not some old lady on the bed. Give me Peggy. Anybody else?
Yeah, I didn't mind. I didn't mind the old lady on the bed, but I definitely would love to see a live action Captain Carter. I think that'd be awesome.
Carter would be awesome. Cooley, I agree 100% with Laura about Doctor Strange getting teary-eyed. I was like, wow, he really cared about Peter. Like, don't call me sir moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Lady Gaga's Black Cat or Emma Frost?
I think Emma Frost.
Yeah,
Emma Frost more than Black Cat.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah, it would be weird. But I love her in House of Gucci. I love her in House of Gucci. Sweetie. Brian Brawler says, when I saw that one-eyed octopus-looking monster, I screamed in my head, "It's Shuma McGrath," aka a character that was in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Wow. Simon Section said, sorry guys about the wrong choice of characters, just typing what Google showed me. Okay.
Google gets you every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew McGregor saying, wonder if anything in the movie will influence Hawkeye episode 6. Yeah, I've been mentioning this in our reviews, that this film comes out right before the finale of Hawkeye. Also, Pete should sue the colleges for discrimination. Hire Matt Murdock. Do you guys think anything will influence? Certainly there was a reference to the Statue of Liberty that we see in Hawkeye, the new Statue of Liberty, and there was a reference there that we saw in the conversation in Hawkeye about No Way Home. Yeah, sorry.
That's probably it. I think Hawkeye is in the business of giving us a satisfying conclusion of that story and setting up Echo.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? No?
More
All
Matt
right.
Murdock anytime, please.
Please. Yeah. Agreed. Is there anything else that I missed? I think we've covered everything, right? That happens in the movie. Anything else that with glaring thing that we missed that we didn't discuss?
Okay, I know we're running long, but
yeah, we are.
How did Tom Hardy get into that universe? Because if he didn't know who Peter Parker was,
I will explain it again. It's so stupid. It makes me so mad, but they did explain it. In the Venom 2 post-credit sequence, when the symbiote and Tom Hardy are laying in bed together and chatting, the symbiote is explaining that he knows a lot of things that Tom Hardy doesn't know because symbiotes are all connected like a hive mind, like the Borg. And he even says that they are connected across universes. Yeah. And this would imply that all symbiotes share a base level of knowledge, which would mean that if Topher Grace's symbiote knew who Peter Parker was, Tom Hardy's symbiote would have some kind of base knowledge of that. So when Doctor Strange's spell goes off and calls everybody from all universes that know who Peter Parker is, it would allow the Tom Hardy symbiote to pull through only because it has a base knowledge of a hive mind of who he is because of Spider-Man 3. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Did all of this get
explained in a post-credit scene somewhere?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. In that post-credit scene for Venom 2, yeah. But I mean, you'd have to go back and see it again to get it. So why would you? All right. I'm just saying. All right. I think that's it. I think that's good. I will end this by saying, give me your final thoughts and your favorite moment in Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah. Shannon, let's start with you this time.
Final thoughts. Definitely my favorite of the Tom Holland Spidey movies. I think it is in the top 10 of my MCU films. Wow. It might be at number 10. But again, I will definitely want to go see it again. Favorite moments. Oh my God. Probably Andrew and Toby coming through the portals.
One more thing, and just so you two guys, G. Trivetti is asking, where does Spider-Man go from here? Yeah, real quick, where does Spider-Man go from here in your opinion, Shannon?
College.
Good answer. Laura? Overall final thoughts, and then what was your favorite moment?
I said at the beginning, I'll say it again, immensely rewarding. There's so much payoff in so many different directions, and it works so well. I would say this is actually my top 5 MCU. We touched on it a little bit. I think the score at the very end, there's strings and there's a chorus and the sunrise is in the background. And we've got the kiss between MJ and Peter Parker. And I think it felt very like Rogue One to me, but like happier. In just the score of Law with Mike and Chiquino, I think it just worked so perfectly. So that was probably one of my favorite components. But yeah, it's hard to narrow it down because there were so many great moments in this movie. I can't wait to go see it again and again.
Fair enough. Michael. Oh yeah. And where do you think Spider-Man goes from here, Laura?
I'm going with, I think it's going to be a little bit of a dark journey at some point. I heard one theory that I really like, which is that because it involves Daredevil, that Peter is going to end up going to Matt Murdock because of that. He saw that he had some sort of like superhero-like ability, and that's somebody that he can relate to and he can explain his situation, and he might reach out to him just for that reason. I like that theory. So I'm going to go with that. But if not, I think either way, wherever we start, it's going to be a darker start for Peter Parker than we've seen from Tom Holland.
like that. I'd love to see Peter Parker and Matt Murdock taking on Kingpin. Mike, final thoughts and favorite moment, and where do you think Spidey goes next?
Final thoughts. It was amazing. It's definitely a top 5 MCU movie for me. Favorite moment. It's not like my favorite because I don't like it, but it's I think that the death of Aunt May is going to be like one of the most impactful moments. I think that, as I said before, I think the entire movie is sort of built around that being the big moment. And so, although I loved Andrew and Toby, I loved all the fun moments, I loved all the good stuff. Like, I feel like it's right up there with like Cap crashing the plane as he's talking to Peggy. It's like one of those beautiful, or like Clint and Natasha on the cliff on Boromir. It's like those moments that sort of like echo and resonate throughout the MCU. I feel like this is that level of big. So I loved it. Where he goes from here, I don't know. I think they're really going to stick to the fact that he doesn't want to bring anybody into his life, that he doesn't want to mess up anyone's life. So I think he's going to be on a very solo journey, trying to make ends meet. And if I had to place my bets, because I don't know how much longer Tom Holland wants to play Spider-Man, and I know that everyone is really excited about it, I think maybe he's going to meet somebody else who gets bitten by a spider who's also struggling, and he's going to find a companion in that person and be a mentor to them. And that's going to be the person that gets him out of his dark hole and helps him figure his shit out. And his name will be Miles Morales.
Sounds good. Geeky Gal says, me waiting and trying to avoid spoilers leading into No Way Home. Stop leaking and talking about this so much and just enjoy it when it comes. Me waiting for Doctor Strange 2. Give me one to now. LOL.
Amen.
Simon Section says, okay, I'm calling. It's going to be Hawkeye versus Bullseye in episode 6. Who would want to see that visual fight? Maybe.
Not in episode 6, but I do want to see that one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's what I'll say. My final thoughts. This, they laid out an incredibly high bar to clear, and they cleared it with some space, some room to spare. And that is rarely done in a situation like this. But Marvel seems to be able to do it. They did it with Infinity War, they did it with Endgame, and they did it here. And it's incredible. I don't know what kind of lucky magic stone they're rubbing to have this kind of a win streak, but it is working so well. And this is the most fantastic and beautiful performance from Tom Holland in the role. I fell in love with him as Peter Parker in this movie. And that moment on the roof, the conversation with the other Spider-Man, that is a little thing that's a gem of a scene that you can take with you forever, because you're rarely ever going to see that again, and have everything build up to a moment like that for us as nerd fans, having watched all those other Spider-Mans live through their Spider-Man and all the crap they took after their respective ending movies of each of their franchises, to be able to come back and have a little bit of closure was fantastic. But overall, Peter Parker's story in this particular universe was so well done to where that ending works so well. And now we get to understand Peter's pain fully and Peter's tragedy fully. So when he goes into the next phase, we have all of that working inside of us to understand this character more. So Tom Holland can do even more work in terms of levels and complexity of the Peter Parker than we've ever seen before from any interpretation. And that's a positive. And I love that overall. And my favorite moment, it's Doc Ock and the Toby. That's nothing's going to beat that. That to me, just for so many reasons, was fantastic. But the Aunt May moment is right there, right behind it for sure. And where Spidey goes next, I think I agree with Laura. I think we're going on a darker solo journey, like Michael said too. And where we're going to end up is going to be very, very interesting. We might see Miles Morales. That's a very good way to end this for sure. All right, that's it from us. Thank you all so much for watching this 2 hour and 37 minutes so far spoiler review. We appreciate it madly. Thank you for all the questions, the super chats, the thoughts and comments. We appreciate it so much. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to Laura. Thank you to Shannon. And Shannon, what do we have to tell him?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at Geek_Buddies, on Instagram at _Geek_Buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MK2, if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
And Mikey?
Look, we welcome geeks from all universes, but we don't have magic spells to get you here. So here's what you can do to help us get more people watching. You can hit the like button below. You can subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page over here and find all the amazing content that he has here. Some of it with us, some of it with Laura, some of it with other awesome people. Leave your comments below. You guys have been amazing in the chat, but definitely take those comments into the YouTube comment section. Let us know what you thought about the movie. Where do you think Peter's going next? What were your favorite favorite moments. If you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere where podcasts are available, go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments because it helps us go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, and tell everybody that you love hanging out with the Geek Buddies.
Absolutely. Mira Miriam, one last thing, says, I believe band moment mirrors when Bruce Banner found out Avengers broke up from Tony. And he said, like the Beatles, like a band, I might be wrong, but it feels right. Oh, maybe. That's
checks out.
Yeah. You know what else? You know what else checks out and tracks? Laura Kelly being a part of the Geek Buddies for another review. Laura, thank you so much. We love you madly. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's long. You're on a different time schedule than we are because it is 11 something where you were at. So thank you very much for taking the time. Please tell everybody where they can find you and all you've got going on.
Sure. John and I host a show about Star Wars here every 3 weeks called The Jedi Way right here on his channel. And the Star Wars podcast that I host with my friend Alice is called Force Toast, a Star Wars Happy Hour. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @shutup_Laura. And Book of Boba Fett's coming out soon. I'll be talking about it in both of those places and likely others when it premieres at the end of this month.
Absolutely. Woo! Yeah, absolutely. We gotta lock Laura down for that, for sure. Book of Boba Fett, yes, absolutely. Me, you can follow, as Shannon said, at The Roke Says. I want to reiterate one more time, trying to cross that 20,000 subscriber mark. So please, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button, because we got so much content going on. Christmas is coming, so I don't know how much content you're going to find on the channel this week. I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to be in Virginia, so I'm going to try to record as much as I can while I'm there, bringing the mic and the camera, but I don't know how much I'll be able to record when I'm there, but we'll figure it out. But definitely the Geek Buddies show will be this week, and we're doing that Hawkeye finale, and we're going to figure out if it's going to be a live finale or how we're going to work it out because of the holiday season. But look for that definitely coming this week as well. All right, that's it from us. For the love of God, go see Spider-Man No Way Home again. Now having all this information and all this interaction and all this chat to put into your brain and enjoy it even more. And we'll talk to you. Oh, one last thing. Thank you to Carbon Health for powering us, sponsoring us, and supporting us. Go to carbonhealth.com to see if they've got a clinic near you where you can get anything you need with personalized healthcare from them. They've got a bunch of clinics, a bunch of virtual care available to you, and they believe in creating a plan personalized for healthcare for you. So, all right, we'll get out of here. Take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode and a brand new review episode from the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!